Alrighty, hello every folks, and welcome to, well, to this thing. It's an AC tier list, and with me today is Mr. Celtic Spear over there. Want to say hi?
Hello.
So, before we kind of get going on this whole thing and share opinions on the whole series and whatnot, just so you know, if you're unfamiliar with the AC community in general, you may have potentially heard that there's kind of some weird back and forths that happen with the different games and people getting really into their particular games. To put it very bluntly, the entire series is basically Legos. Like, imagine if everything that was ever considered a Lego, well, just suddenly came under one umbrella. So you got, you got the kids over there with their Kinects, you got the kids over here with their proper Legos, and everyone's laughing at the kids with the Mega Blocks. Basically, everyone's got their own little thing, but in the end, everyone's just putting stuff together and trying to have a good time. Each one of these games is a different kind of sandbox for this kind of situation. So, just so you know, even if one's rated higher than the other, that doesn't objectively mean that nobody can like it, etc. These games are actually all surprisingly pretty good. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this thing started. So, alright. So let's start off with the first one. Good old AC1, good old classic here. What are you thinking?
I would put AC1 like B.
B?
Maybe
agreed on that
even,
one.
Like low A. Because AC1 is like, it's the foundation of the series. Like it's got a lot of really cool moments in it. Because it's the first game. Like,
the anthill.
It has some really iconic moments in it. Like that's the first game where you are introduced to 9-ball.
Exactly.
It's the first game where you kind of get two different routes to take depending on which side you side with. Like you can get the Murakumo sort of ending and the
and you get Chrome.
What's your company? Chrome, yeah, Chrome. But it's weird because it's not really like a proper ending. It's just gonna like.
Who sends you to fight the final boss?
Ending that you get like before the final boss, yeah.
Yeah,
which I think is really cool.
I will say though, also the setting, like the kind of like, how would the term be? Like how they do all the settings and everything for it are pretty dang cool. Like I was saying, the anthill a second ago. Like as far as any kind of horror stuff goes on the PS1, you know what? Silent Hill, Resident Evil can eat your heart out. That anthill is the scariest dang thing.
Oh, I love the atmosphere of AC1. I really love that moment, like before you get like your company ending kind of thing. Like there's a point in the game where like everyone just turns against you and everyone is out to get you. I love it. I really love that part of the game. And yeah, I think it's a solid like B. It's like a really good foundation to make what do you call a franchise off of.
Yeah, I would like personally.
And also the music is really good.
True. Yeah, like Apex and Circle. Actually, wait, is Apex and Circle an MOA? I don't know, but the garage theme is iconic.
It's from MOA. Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I would have said A, but the arena, you can't do the arena yet. You gotta beat the entire game to do the dang arena. But what can you do?
Yeah, and the balancing in AC1 is like pretty
oh yeah, it's pretty jank.
messed up to say the least. Like the moment you get the Karasawa, which you find like laying in the floor in like a mid-game mission for free.
I was like behind one of the fuel canisters.
Yeah, it's like behind like a canister, and you just get the Karasawa, and now the game is easy mode from now on. Like there's nothing that will kill you ever.
It takes
and
less
it's really weird.
Less energy than a pulse rifle. Checks out. But hey, you're limited on what legs you can use with it.
Yeah, I never understood that.
I think it's a
Why
clipping
some
thing.
legs you can't use the Karasawa. It might be that. It's really weird.
Because yeah, they've always had weirdly specific hitboxes. Like it's just a very FromSoft thing that just stuff is not allowed to clip through other stuff. Well, I guess unless it's Dark Souls. That got exceptions.
And I also love how you find the moonlight. It's literally like a sword in a rock.
Right? It's
really
pretty dang cool. I mean, later on they end up putting it on a church altar, if I recall. Actually, that was an MOA. Was that? No, that was a generator. Wait, was that a generator in FCS or the Moonlight that was on a church altar? You get, like, you literally have to blow the church away, and it's just sitting there. It's so weird. But yeah. All right. So we should probably move on to the next one then. Project Fantasma. Now, personally, I'm voting C. What about you?
I have mixed opinions on Project Fantasma. On one hand, I usually give it a lot of like, I used to give it a bad rap until I like started thinking about it, and it's a pretty fun game. The only issue I have with it is that it's pretty short.
Oh yeah.
And I will dare say it was rushed. Because it has a really cool concept in it. Like for a start, it's a prequel. It happens before AC1, which I didn't know until recently.
Yeah, never.
And
I remember reading that. I completely forgot about that up until now, actually.
yeah, it happens like a couple of years before AC1, and it introduces a lot of like mainstay stuff to the series. Like you got the arena for starters, like which is great.
Yeah.
And you also sort of have the operator, because in AC1 you didn't really have an operator. In here you also don't really have an operator, but like you have a partner with you in a bunch of missions that will basically work like your operator.
Yeah, it's pretty
Which
close.
is Sumika. The only thing I don't like about it is the antagonist is kind of lacking. Like it's his finger.
Oh, I'm unstoppable.
Like,
oh wait.
Bad at being the bad guy because he just fails every time.
And
It's
like
really funny.
comically so too. Like he just gets blown the hell away. Okay, they copied the RoboCop poster for the first one. Maybe he's just another RoboCop reference. He's just supposed to be reenacting scene 1 over and over again. But he was secretly the good guy.
Yeah, it's like so weird what they did with his finger.
His arms are
And
really good later,
I
though.
remember like there is like a part in the game where you beat him and he's like, yeah, all right, I'll just leave, and then he just stays there dead.
Oh, that's the bit in the factory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's supposed to leave, and you see his AC standing still there. It's like, okay, whatever.
Hang on,
you
needed a
also-
bathroom
this
break.
is the first game that like you get to see a human inside the game, which is pretty cool.
True. And you find out that people can merge with giant robot lobsters. So that's fun.
That much is true as well. That's the other thing I didn't like about it. Like the final boss is just a recolor of the previous boss that you find like twice.
Dude, that like rave though, that rave is so cool. Even if the boss kind of
It
sucks.
really caught me by surprise. But then like I think it's bugged where like if you use move to the side, it will never hit you, which is kind of a shame. Because it's a really cool attack.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You sometimes even
I
get to
used
see it.
Yeah, I have like a weird opinion of Project Fantasma. I will put it at. Yeah, I guess C is fine.
It was a
I do like
DLC
that there's a
campaign
lot
for
of-
all intents and purposes.
Yeah, it's basically just a DLC campaign for AC1.
I mean, or do we want to like
I-
match it at B then? Because it's like,
Yeah, I will put it at B too. 'Cause,
Whoever
like,
did the
you
intro,
kind of
though.
have to play both. Like
Yeah.
you just play both back to back, and it's like the full experience, I guess.
true. Whoever did the intro was drunk though. That thing made no sense.
Yeah, you have a montage of just AC's modeling for you, basically.
Check out these weird grenade launcher hands. They totally exist.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of parts that are not even in the game.
Oh,
And
yeah.
some of them are in the game, but they have like a different model to them. So like you wouldn't know they're there. Like you wouldn't know they're supposed to be a weapon that's actually in the game because it just looks completely different.
I mean, to be fair, the base game has just a literal like Mossberg that's a pistol. So, all right. So, next up, Master of Arena. I'm voting A. What about you?
Yeah, I will put it at A. Master of Arena is great. I absolutely love Master of Arena. The soundtrack is amazing. Apex and Circle.
Hell
slaps.
yes.
I love it. And you not only get the arena, you get a whole extra disc of just arenas.
Dude, those are the best. Like,
if you ever like the arena of Project Fantasma, you're gonna love Master of Arena because it just has an entire disc dedicated to it.
and this was like the origin of the meme AC, of just like the people that are there like, oh yeah, this guy's like 80 and operates his AC without a generator. He built it in his backyard and operates it off a hamster wheel. You suck for losing to this guy.
And there's a one tank that is supposed to be made out of wood and shit like
Yeah,
that. It's
Kangaki.
so funny.
Yeah.
It's great. And you also have like the AC1 guy. He's in the arena too, and you can fight him, I think.
Yeah, I forget if he's named Phoenix already in that one, or if he goes by. He has like 3 different names. They just couldn't decide on a name for that guy.
Phoenix. But yeah, I love Master of Arena. I introduced a lot of really cool parts, and it's just it's the culmination of what AC1 and Project Fantasma are.
Yeah.
I love it for that.
Not to mention it's the first time...
Definitely,
Oh, go ahead.
it's definitely a must-play if you're interested in old gen.
Absolutely.
I would say.
Like, if you can only play one of the three, definitely Master of Arena. And there isn't even, like... There doesn't need to be much story in AC at the best of times, but the way that they set it up is a really, really organic feeling experience that they're like, you are nobody. You need to kill this guy. That is your end goal. So here you go. You got some arena fights, you got some missions. You got some arena fights, you got some missions. You balance this out, okay? We're going to explain how to do this once and not do it again for the rest of the series. But anyway.
Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, this is the first game that kind of delves into Unix and like AI ACs and stuff like that.
True.
Because here you can make your own rankers.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, you can make your own rankers and fight against them, and you can customize their behavior and parts and stuff like that. Like, this game introduced this on the PS1. It's great.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I found out. I only found out like when Royal was doing his videos a few years ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, check it out. I made all these AIs." Like, what? You can do that? I figured the game would have melted from that feature, but not to mention some of the maps are just really, really cool.
Oh yeah, a lot of them are really cool. I really like that one arena that is like a mini city. I really love that one.
Oh yeah, true. Very true. And the moon base, which is kind of cheesy, but, you know, it's on the moon.
Oh
so.
yeah, the moon base.
There's just landmines everywhere. It's fine. Actually, no, wait, the landmines were the forested area. My bad. Alright, so, you mentioned earlier you haven't gone through 2nd gen before. So...
Yes, this is my sim as an AC player. I haven't played Gen 2.
Okay, so I will try to keep these short and sweet then. First of all, AC2, easily one of the best in the series, at least in my opinion. At least in my opinion. For a couple things. Ooh. Basically, take Master of Arena, right? Like, literally even take the main character from Master of Arena, because he's the bad guy here. And yeah, that, like, basically the exact same formula, except you have freedom over whether you want to do missions or arena. You still have your semi-branching missions, as always. You still have your standard about 50 missions. They introduced extensions at this point, and I believe they introduced insides. I forget if insides were...
Yes, they introduced... Yeah, they were introduced in AC2. AC2 introduced the radiator.
Yeah, that too.
Mechanics.
It barely did anything in AC2, though.
Yeah.
Like, it was just there.
Was
like, there was almost...
AC2 has a lot of weird bugs, from what I've heard. Like,
it does.
The strongest booster in the game is not even the strongest booster. Like, if you use the stronger booster, it's slower than another booster that for some reason has more power.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff, but...
I mean, it did have a cool... it did have... Oh, sorry. What do you think on their...
Yeah, it was their first, like, PS2 title, so it's kind of excusable for them to, like, have a lot of bugs in there.
Yeah, I mean, it does get the occasional stutter, too.
Because if I recall correctly, this was a launch title for the PS2.
That sounds right. Because I remember my brother and I played this alongside, like, Metal Gear 2, so... Sounds about right.
From Software selling PS consoles since forever.
Pretty much, except for the PS4 and PS5. You don't get any. Well, actually, no, wait. They made Souls and stuff for those, so fair enough.
You mean the PS4? You mean the Bloodborne box?
Yeah, the Bloodborne box. That's man. Still thinking about how awesome AC7 would have been on that, but oh well. Yes, it probably would have been 7 by that point. Don't question my completely forgetting that 6 doesn't exist yet. We'll just pretend it does. But point being, AC2, it's one of these ones that, yes, on a technical level, it's got issues, but it's got a lot of really good energy to it. It basically does a lot of what was later refined in AC3. It introduces a bunch of mechanics. The map design is really cool. A lot of the set pieces are really cool. Like the fact that you basically have an air raid against a flying space station at one point is pretty dang cool. You got, like, there's just a bunch of really cool stuff that they do in it. It's one of the few times that they actually establish a continuity between any of the games. Because, yeah, Leos Klein is supposed to be your protagonist character from Master of Arena, and then he got so pissed off after he killed Nineball He was like, I'm just gonna own space now. More or less. There's more to it, but all right. And then another age we are going to put down in D. Now, here's the thing. I would still recommend playing another age. The thing is, okay, so if you look at the like Souls games that FromSoft made, look at Dark Souls 1. Now look at the painted world and how it's basically just a gigantic dump of all the ideas they clearly couldn't fit into the main game. Now imagine if they made that its own game. That's basically what another age is. There is zero plot. It's basically a series of just weird challenge missions that claim to have a plot of some kind, but they never really connect in any way. Most of them are complete BS. Actually, if you don't transfer a character in from AC2, you're probably going to have a really rough time. I personally rented this one a ton from a Hollywood Video when I was growing up. Yeah, that still existed back then. And yeah, every time it was just like, why did I rent this again? I still can't beat it, and back it goes. But yeah, even the last boss is never even mentioned throughout the entire game until you just sort of fight him. Just imagine a series of like, here's a garage, it's got some 9-ball clone in it, and a bunch of MTs. Okay, now let's do the B side of this. Now suddenly you are on 9-ball's side, and you're helping out all these guys, and there's some random chuckle buckets that decided to show up and attack you. And now we'll do a C side over here, where you are now on an airplane. You're above this whole situation. Like, imagine the A and B scenarios and the occasional C scenario that you see in Nexus, and a bunch of like cut content from AC2. That's what another age is. It's cool, but it's like, it's sheer cutting room floor material, like all the way through. And like, imagine 3 ACs that they didn't bother to program having ammo counts that all are running Human Plus in a tight hallway. Yeah. It has moments like that where you literally just have to use the Kurosawa or screw you, more or less. Because you can't dodge, you can't do anything other than tank hits and try to out DPS 3 guys at once. Alright.
Alright, here's my take about Another Age. Because bear in mind, I haven't played it, badly, because I really want to do eventually. But here's where the rankings kind of get hazy a little bit, because I think AC2 is the point where the campaign is kind of bad, or maybe not automatically bad, but kind of like a second thought, and PvP becomes more prevalent. I don't know if you knew that the Japanese players still play AC2 Another Age today.
Really?
To this day. Yes, they do. This is a
All
really
right.
good multiplayer on record. Like, they do PvP
Yeah.
on it to this day. And
Okay,
I've
well, that
seen
boosts
some
it up to
footage and
C.
the game looks crazy. So this is the point where we have to start like gauging or like measuring the games by 2 criteria, which is like the single player content and the multiplayer. This is the point where it gets like, multiplayer gets its focus a lot. And you will start noticing that as the game goes on, PvP kind of takes priority, even in all of them. Like in 3rd gen you will see it a lot, and I'll explain as we go. But yeah, now it's when the rankings are kind of tricky to deal.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's that's weird. I actually never knew that they were still doing Another Age PvP. Like, I've seen some videos in the past, but I thought like they were just one-offs from, you know, back in the friggin' aughts or something. But dang, gonna have to look that up later. Sounds pretty dang awesome. All right, so moving on to the next one, AC3. Do we have a disagreement on top tier for this thing?
I kind of wanna give it A, not S.
All right, fair enough. Explain
My
yourself.
reason is that I do like AC3 a lot. It's sort of like a remake or like a reimagining of AC1.
Yep.
Which is pretty good, because it serves as a good starting point for anyone who wants to get into the series. And you know, PS1 games are not for everyone. Some people may want something a little bit more modern, and I think AC3 fits the bill for that.
And for moving elbows.
Yeah, it's a really good game, but I have my issues with it. I think it's a little boring at points in the campaign.
All right.
And the PvP for AC3 is kind of whack. Like it's kind of weird. There's a lot of balancing decisions that are not good, and early third gen struggles a lot with the PvP balancing.
Yeah, that's for
yeah,
sure.
I wouldn't.
It's why they took out the howitzer.
Yeah, like in AC3, one of the like banned combos was a super lightweight with a rifle and a howitzer, because it would just run circles around everything and just kill it.
Yeah, you can't even move.
Free.
I'm assuming they're talking about the green rifle, friggin' special lockbox nonsense. The second one.
Yeah, I think in this game it had like WS lock, and you also had the howitzer, which is like a stun city.
Yeah.
So you just hold triggers on people as you circle them. Yeah, it's a bit weird.
It was pretty bonkers.
I think AC3 is a really good starting point for anyone who wants to join and get into the fun of Armored Core. And it's to a point where it has a lot of features to it, because you have howitzers and you know, you start getting a lot of parts to play with. It introduces actually no, never mind. I was gonna say introduce hover legs, but those were introduced in AC2.
Yeah, it was just hard to tell the difference between quads and hovers for earlier on.
Oh yeah.
It's like, does that? I mean, the quads kind of sort of hover above the ground. They're just like skating. What's the point of it being square? But
but yeah, I think AC3 has a lot of features that that make it like a good starting point, because you have a lot of stuff to use in that game, and it's not overwhelming like the later gens where the learning curve is literally a wall.
True.
Yeah, I think it's a solid A tier game for me.
So, hear me out. I'm gonna vote on putting the portable remake slightly above it. Now, I know the whole like moving left and right on the tier list kind of thing, but you could suddenly play it portably. You could suddenly play it easily on emulator. You could suddenly play it online, which, I mean, technically, well, like, I don't know if Voctor ever made a patch for this one, but they added a whole bunch of stuff. And they kind of sort of fixed some stuff. I think they just sort of accepted PvP was never going to be a thing for the portable remake. But, like, it's technically there, but they literally even took out the multiplayer menu in the front. So there we go. If we don't count multiplayer being imbalanced as all hell for that one, it's a purely single-player experience. But yeah, no,
I will give AC3 on the PSP the S tier purely based on the fact that that's the game that introduces my favorite head in third gen, which is the
reindeer.
I have as the mascot of my
that thing's cool.
Channel, and yeah, the glitch head, I love it. So just based on that, I will say that yeah, it's an S tier.
Not to mention they have like the dress hover legs. Like they always make me think of like an old hoop dress or something, but the Zeo legs. Pretty friggin' good.
From AC2.
I mean, it basically octuples your hitbox, but dang thing's really good. Alright, so Silent Line. What are you voting?
Silent Line is an ACS tier for me. I think that Silent Line is the best AC game in my opinion. And I know that's kind of controversial to say, but I think that AC picked at Silent Line. Now, it's not to say that it's a perfect game, just it kind of has the Project Fantasma syndrome, where it's basically just a DLC for AC3, but
Fair.
It introduces a lot of new mechanics to the game that its predecessors didn't have, because this is the first game where you can dual wield guns in your AC, because this is the game that introduced left arm guns.
But they couldn't quite lock on their own yet.
Yeah, the way they work is kind of weird, and it's like, the way they work is that, for people that don't know, your left arm gun will lock on to anything that your right arm gun does. Which means that if you do not have a right arm gun, like if for some reason you dropped it,
you are now SOL.
Also AC3 introduced dropping weapons, which I think is really cool too. I forgot to mention that.
Very true.
Yeah, if your right arm gun is gone, your left arm is completely useless. Like it's not gonna lock onto anything, because that wasn't a thing back then, which is pretty weird and clunky in my opinion. And that led to a lot of headaches in PvP.
Interesting thing though. In PvP, you could still go back and pick up your gun. It was the only time they let you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, this game, Silent Line introduces two really cool mechanics that kind of but not really come back, in that this is the game that introduced weapon breaking, in here you can break weapons from the enemy. If you shoot their weapon enough, it's gonna explode in their hand.
It's less cool than it sounds, because they based it on projectile type. So sniper rifles always
really
work.
Less cool than it is. And this game also lets you pick up weapons from the floor. It's really cool and weird. But if you were to drop a weapon, it's not gonna disappear, because in the other games it would just like clip through the floor and it's gone now. In Sun Online, at least in PvP, because you cannot really do it in single player or the arena, because if you drop a weapon it's just gone forever. But in PvP you have the option to pick your weapon from the floor. And the cool thing about it is that it's not exclusive to your own weapon. If you were to drop a weapon that still has ammunition, or just a weapon in general, your enemy can still pick them up. It doesn't matter who dropped them. The enemy can use your own weapons, and you can use the weapons of the enemy, and that adds a whole dynamic.
Yeah, I wish they would have brought that back. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Like
there is a lot of like cool moments that happened off of that mechanic. Thankfully, the game lets you toggle those features off for PvP. Like you can disable weapon break and you can disable pick up weapons if you don't like to play it. Usually, when we do PvP on Sun Online, we keep the pick up weapons on, but we absolutely disable break weapon because it's
busted.
It's a headache. Like in a PvP situation, if you blow up the enemy's random weapon, you win. You straight up win.
Pretty much.
There's nothing the enemy can do.
Just a quick little thing, by the way, for anyone unfamiliar, what I was talking about earlier about projectile type. So every time that every weapon fires, whatever it is, what it seems to be actually checking for is not the actual damage the weapon does, but like specifically what object is used to fire out of it. So like it seems like it hits the object and then it checks for damage. In the case of weapon break, they're literally just like, it got hit by whatever thing. So if somebody's using, for example, like a rifle and a sniper rifle, they are going to shred all the pieces off your AC, which combines really weirdly with this bug with shoulder pads, because a lot of people, Silent Line introduced solid shell shoulder pads, which just were like a general like armor plate you slapped on. There was a pretty good general purpose thing if you didn't need your shoulders for anything. But there was this weird stability bug wherein if your shoulder pads were blown off, you essentially got negative stability on your AC, meaning you were suddenly able to get stun locked by dang near anything. So it was really weird. But anyway. Okay.
I'm not done with the Sun Online yet because I forgot to mention something.
Keep going. I just needed to get that in there.
The PvP is it's really good. I will say, I really love it, but it has a tremendous amount of balancing issues in that the left arm sniper rifle is absolutely busted because, in this game, your left arm weapons don't really have a lockbox, so it doesn't matter what lockbox they are supposed to be. Like a sniper rifle, you can pair a sniper rifle with a machine gun, and now you have a sniper rifle on your left arm locking with a giant square that's basically the size of your screen. Yeah,
good luck guessing which one the sniper round is.
Yeah, the 70 round sniper rifle in that game is absolutely busted. It's 100% the best left arm weapon in the game. It's insane. Usually PvP would just devolve into people running the 800 bullet machine gun and the 70 ammo sniper rifle and just damage racing everything. Yep. And it was insane. And also shields are a big problem in Sun Online too, where the amount of defense you get out of the solid extension shields is so much that, as an example, a lightweight with those shoulder units will be more durable than a proper midweight.
And
that's pretty insane.
Another funny thing is that ultra heavies going in with a shield and side shields, it's the only time in the entire series that you can actually get to the point where you become invincible to damage. Like it literally just starts going into the decimals. Like I've seen. You can absolutely make super heavy ACs that literally do not take damage. Like grenade launchers will do 10 damage per shot. It's insane. Yeah, I think was it Cow that made a bunch of tests on that whole thing? There was somebody runs up with 1,000 MG, a grenade launcher, I think some Hydras or something, and they literally run out of ammo before they can even hurt this thing.
yeah, it's the defense in Sunline is really high, and the heavyweights like basically dominate the meta a little bit. It's pretty cool. This is like, if you really like heavyweights in Armored Core, Sunline is the game for you, because heavyweights are really good in this game, for better or for worse. Also, the music in this game is amazing.
That it is.
It's probably my favorite soundtrack in the game.
It's actually what I've got. What I've got playing in the background now. I still don't know if that's actually coming through on Discord, but yeah.
Also, the final boss has this weird mechanic in it where it will like adapt to your AC, depending on what you do. Like if you're running like a close range setup, it's gonna play differently than if you run like a long range sniper setup on your ACs, which I thought is really cool. But in hindsight, you're kind of never gonna see this because the final boss just dies immediately.
Yeah, and
the mechanic is kind of wasted.
Even when you do, like challenge runs and stuff like that, it tends to be more annoying than interesting because usually he just does a different pattern over and over. But
yes, it's weird.
Couple of notes, by the way. Just like speaking of bosses and missions and stuff, Silent Line definitely has some of the coolest missions in the series. Like, basically, it's what AC3 did, except suddenly everything's taken up to 11 and has a bunch of weird parameters to it. Like, probably my favorite example is the one where you end up fighting, I think it's like Busker or something is his name, the guy with the friggin' heat cannon arms that you fight in the desert in a sandstorm. And it's like, your whole mission there is just go there and fight these MTs. And if you do it very, very slowly and you get completely overwhelmed, you fight the MTs and you go home embarrassed. If you do pretty well against the MTs, then another AC shows up. If you do somewhere in the middle, then the sandstorm might clear up while you're fighting that AC, and suddenly the weather's changed. But then suddenly, say you're having a hard time with that AC fight, suddenly they call in an airship and it starts shooting stuff down from the sky. Like, it even has different dialogue based on how much damage you're doing compared to the actual airship. Like, it's just neat that so many of the missions have all these little miniature parameters that change all over the place. They have a lot of really cool set pieces. And weirdly enough, there's, I think, like 4 or so occasions where there's ACs that they meant to actually, I guess, write some anything for at some point, and they just sort of show up like, oh, it's Longspear. Who the hell's Longspear? Nobody knows who Longspear is. Oh, a funny note, actually, before I forget. In the PS2 version, with the multiplayer menu on the front menu, they completely forgot to update the names from AC3, so they still, while they are a completely new roster, they still use the exact same names. Not too relevant to anything. I just thought it was funny. But, alright, so, anything else to add on that one?
No, I think, like, there's not much left unsaid. Basically, to summarize it, go play Silent Line.
Yeah.
Like, if you like Armored Core, and if you want to experience, like, classic Armored Core, go play Silent Line, because it's great. You're missing out if you don't. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, game in the series. And I still play it online to this day, so yeah, go give it a look.
Yeah, me too.
The music is great. There's a lot of really cool ideas that, sadly, some of them kind of would not really come back later, and some of them are just immediately abandoned. You can tell that From Software was like experimenting a lot in that game.
Yeah,
it's kind of appreciated.
You know, the whole kind of changing plotline thing they would do later in the series kind of also started with Silent Line in a way, because they actually have a whole bunch of missions around the middle where you can actually, technically, depending on your path through the game, like approach them from different directions or just do them piecemeal or whatever else. I'm thinking specifically about like the lab at the moment, where in one case you just go in and you fight the giant bug things, in other cases you have to go down and go searching for somebody, in another case you're just coming in through some sidewalls. I forget what you're doing over there, but but yeah, there's all kinds of cool variations and things like that. Like, my summary of it would be start with AC3, and then Silent Line is kind of its cool uncle, basically. Like, it's the one that shows up, shows up with a giant party, more or less. Like, took what's already there, and it's about to give you a good weekend. So, all right. So, technically speaking, the next ones to be sequels here, from what I understand, would be the mobile games. Now, I've never played these. I've heard they technically exist. I've seen some videos, and they run, we're just going to go with subpar. I'm glad they exist, and in full disclosure, again, haven't actually gone through these. I'm assuming you haven't either, right, Celt?
Yes, I haven't. I tried at one point, but I kind of gave up. Like, it's almost impossible to find, like, the files for these games.
Yeah.
Or at least I couldn't. If anyone is willing to try, be my guest.
I found the files, but I couldn't get them to run on anything. It was weird. Like, apparently you specifically need to emulate the right kind of phone. Like, it has to be one of those old-timey Japanese, like, smart flip phone type deals. But I don't know anything about those, so I just kind of gave up after a while. Alright, so I guess, let's see, which one of these is technically next? I think it's Nexus that's next, funnily enough.
Yes? Yeah, it's Nexus, I think.
Now, I'm voting A. What do you think?
Alright, I have a weird relation with Nexus, because, as I mentioned earlier off camera, I didn't finish it.
Fair.
My PS2 kind of died midway through my gameplay of Nexus, and I didn't finish it. I never wanted to finish it because I was kind of bored out of my ass. Now, granted, this might have been my fault because when I played Nexus, I did it after playing Sun Online, which I loved, and then I went straight into Ninebreaker, and Ninebreaker again. This is like my second playthrough of Ninebreaker, and I spent way too much time on Ninebreaker, and by the time I got to Nexus, I kind of was like burned out, and I did not enjoy it. I thought it was boring, and I didn't like the music. I wasn't in the mood for Nexus, so yeah. It could be my fault. I'm not saying that the game is automatically bad, but I didn't like what I played it.
See, okay. So my thoughts on Nexus are weird because I had a somewhat similar experience because I loved the hell out of AC3. I was challenge running that thing for ages. Loved 2, loved 1. Then Nexus comes out and it's like, what the hell am I even looking at? Like, suddenly none of the builds that I used to use worked. All the parts are different. What is this heat mechanic? Why is my, war mech suddenly become a toaster? And admittedly, at first, didn't care for the music either. As time went on, it's probably my second favorite soundtrack in the entire series. It's like, it's one of those ones where I would recommend at some point just going and just listening to the entire soundtrack because there's some amazing ones in there. But yeah, it's a weird hit and miss with the music, but okay, it makes a terrible first impression, but on second, third, whatever playthroughs, there's a lot to love there. Like they did the whole alternate scenario thing really well. Wherein, like, if you fail one mission, the game will actually, call you out for it later. Or if you end up, doing some optional objectives, it'll adjust for that. Or, if you end up winning this, that, or the other in the arena, or lose to this other guy, they'll bring it up later. That part was really cool. To the point they actually removed the load button in your system menu because you're supposed to go and experience all that. The overheating thing is, like, it makes a terrible first impression, but upon going back to it a few years ago, it really wasn't that bad. It's like if you tune a couple pieces for cooling, you're pretty much golden. It's just that it kind of came out of nowhere, and they didn't really make too much of an announcement about it. It sucks that you have to pay for tuning. They fixed that in later games. But
yeah, on that topic, Nexus is the first game to introduce the tuning system.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And on the topic of heat, this is when you start noticing that PvP kind of takes priority now in terms of balancing.
Very true.
The reason that it is so punishing is because it was deliberately made to be really punishing for PvP, and that kind of affected also the PvE because, like, this is the PS2. You can't really do what, like, for example, For Answer did, where in For Answer you kind of have like a regulation to play in single player and a different regulation with a different set of stats to play multiplayer. Here you can't really do that. So here's where you start realizing that they like sacrifice a little bit of the single player experience just to improve multiplayer. And even then, I remember like people didn't really like Nexus for PvP too much because it was like so punishing that people would like be afraid to push.
Yeah.
And
The
it was just a slug fest where people just got overheated, got a stun lock, everything hit it too much. So yeah, it was a bit of a mess.
interesting.
But to be fair, it's like their first attempt at it.
So, a quick little interesting note here, by the way. This was also, and may be able to notice a trend by this point, that I always liked playing the single multiplayer where you go against the AI bots and things like that. This was the first one where they introduced a bunch of bots where they didn't even bother giving them all... Like, before that, they just took people from the arena that would have been pretty cool to have there. In Nexus was pretty much the first time that they started going really boring with it, so they had a bunch of them that were just like serial numbers and things like that, and were very, very difficult to beat. But it more or less was just, would you like to fight, skinny gray blob or big gray blob or gray blob with grenade launcher? But either way, it was pretty brutal. I will say that much for the multiplayer AI is just, whew. But I mean, I don't know. I kind of like it today, but again, it's a very contentious one. It's one of these ones where first time through, definite C, but then I feel like it kind of gains some of that back. Should we just say like B for experimental? But
yeah, I will put it at B. I think it's
it tried a lot.
It's not really bad, but I wouldn't say it excels too much at anything it tries to do.
Like, I think it's a damn good game, but it tried to do too many things at once. But the bonus disc was really cool, though. That part.
Oh yeah.
Oh, actually no.
The game had a bonus disc.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. There's one thing for that bonus disc, gotta put it back in A.
Yeah.
The music
Yeah,
menu.
I agree.
Did you see the music menu?
Yeah.
Dude, they had remixes of the entire series. It was so good.
They have the remixes of a lot of the old gen tracks, and yeah.
Man, Artificial
Now that you
Sky
mentioned the
Tribal.
bonus
Oh,
disc,
so good.
yeah, I will put it at A. Also, I this is a rumor, so don't like actually take it with like a big grain of salt. But I don't remember who said it, but I remember that I've heard that Nexus was kind of supposed to just be a bunch of remake of the missions from the older games, and that it wasn't supposed to have its own campaign, and that its own campaign was kind of like an afterthought. But I'm not sure about that, and don't quote me on it, because I have no idea if this is true or not.
It would be a very FromSoft thing to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm inclined to believe that it's an actual like possibility that the campaign is kind of like an afterthought, and that the game was supposed to just be like a remake of a bunch of old gen stuff. So yeah. Also, the final boss music, it's really good. The Red Butterfly.
Yeah, that one's awesome. By the way, fun note, because I forget if we were discussing this on the video or not. For anyone that didn't know, Nexus does actually allow you to leave the ending. I just kind of feel like I always have to bring that up, but yeah, you can just leave at any point. And actually, one quick moment, I'm changing the music in the background because I have to show off the Nexus soundtrack real quick, just to show what I was talking about there, because it's got some really, really good music actually.
While you do that, I'm gonna mention something that I completely forgot, and this is the third game that actually allows you to use the analog sticks to play your game.
Oh, true. Forgot about that.
The old game didn't let you use your like analogs, or they used the analogs, but like in a weird like 10 control capacity. So yeah, this is the first game in the franchise that actually has like proper third-person shooter, or like the idea you have with a regular third-person shooter controls.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Fun, bizarre detail, by the way. Going back to AC2 over here, that one didn't have any analog support whatsoever, but you got partial analog support for Another Age. It felt very strange. Just kind of throwing that out there. It's going back and forth between the two. Okay, so you mentioned it earlier. Now, Ninebreaker. Now, what's your vote on this? I vote A, but what's your...
I'm a Ninebreaker fanboy. I think it's an easy S tier. I know
right.
People don't like it because it's weird.
I love it.
Hear me out. I'm gonna like die on this hill. I think Ninebreaker is the best game. Not the best game in the series, but it's one of the best in late third gen at least. And it did a lot of weird stuff. Like this game has like no story whatsoever. It's just a collection of training missions, and it's kind of like think of the like Metal Gear Solid like BR mission thingies, but it's Armored Core, and
Exactly.
it's like a training thing. And you also have like an arena that is basically endless, because it has like an opponent randomizer thing where you
that
can
thing is
select,
so
like,
cool.
what you want to fight. Like, oh, I want to fight a tank that fight at mid range, and it has like mid-weight parts and whatever, and then the game will just like make your opponents with that description. It's really cool.
Are you ready to fight a tank with S rank cooling, no energy, and only a parry blade? All right.
Yeah, it's some of them are pretty whack and really bad, but some of them
So
are
fun,
also
though.
really good. Although I gotta say that once you start like messing around with the settings, you kind of start realizing that a lot of those ACs will start repeating it themselves instead of like a preset to them. But it's still cool. Like, if you want to fight anything there, the game is probably gonna make it for you.
Also, probably the most unique top rank AC in the series. That some Gnar is really dang cool.
Oh yeah. But I will say that this game is really good. I think it deserves a playthrough. Maybe play it for like as long as you like, until you get bored, and then just leave it there. But I will say that if you're an AC fan that likes to challenge themselves, Nightbreaker is a good place to go, because it's really challenging in my opinion, especially if you're like a completionist and you go for the gold medals for like each test, which I did, and I kind of regret, because I actually don't regret, but like it took me forever to get like all the gold medals and stuff. And this game is really easy to pick up, and like you will notice that there's like no store in the game. Like there's no, you don't really buy parts. You get
You
like
just have them.
80% of the parts just for free at the beginning. You just have them. Like the moment you start the game, you can just make whatever AC you want and then go to town. And this is to the benefit, because the way the game is made, you can really just make whatever you want and then say, yeah, I'm just gonna finish the game with my personal AC or whatever. Here you kind of have to start specializing for each test. And if you're one of those people that really like the building aspect and just specializing and making an AC for a specific task, this game is it's gonna be really good for you.
Yeah, but it was like
all those
puzzle
tests
mode.
are really, really strong and really difficult to beat if you don't know how to do or what to build for them. So yeah, I would say if you like a challenge, go for it.
Yeah, I know personally I could barely stand those tests, but dang, that arena was so good. Would definitely still agree on the S rank, though. All right.
Oh, and there is one specific test. I'm gonna mention it because I know that if there's any Nightbreaker player that's watching this, they're gonna mention the spacing test, I think it's called, where you have to chase like a drone around the map, and you have to stay at a very specific range from it, and if you go closer or farther from it, you automatically lose.
Ew.
That test it still gives me nightmares, and it's a lot of BS, but I'm pretty sure that it's the nightmare of every like Nightbreaker player out there.
D tier, understood.
Hey, sir, get that back where it belongs. There you go. Also, the Japanese also still play this game in PvP.
That I'm not surprised. The PvP in this thing is excellent. So
Yes,
technically,
very, very good.
coming out at the same time, more or less, give or take, whatever, close enough, there's 3 different versions of the more or less same game. So you said you haven't played Formula Front much, right?
Yeah, I have played it a bit. I messed around with it. I think I finished like the PSP one, but I didn't really like went deep into it or like take it too seriously at all. And I just messed around with it. It's a pretty cool concept, but
Okay. I've put a
it's
few
not too
hundred
much
hours
for me.
into it. So here's the deal. Here's the deal with Formula Front. There's 3 different versions. So let me just slap these out there, and we can just discuss it from there. First of all, the standard US release. This was the one that barely ran on a PSP, sort of ran on a PS2, and had about, I would say, a third of the content as everything else. That one can sit in D. Then we have the... we have the next one, which is the Japanese version, which, funnily enough, you can actually get a UMD for pretty cheap, with a good amount of content in there. It runs pretty darn well on a PSP, but it doesn't quite have everything, so we'll go ahead and put it on C. And then we have the international version. Like, this is the end-all, be-all. I don't know why this isn't the only one they released. I would put it in as an easy A or S tier. Only staying out of S tier because you can't get Human Plus, so you can't remake everything. Arguably, the PS2 version of this, while using cheats, is the best version because you can actually do Human Plus. You can literally remake any AC from the entire series. Plus, there's a bunch of cut content maps and whatever else. But that's unofficial, so we can't really put that on there. But you can remake almost anything. You have a pretty good selection of maps on there. You can have some pretty dang good fun times there. Again, with the PS2 version, people still do multiplayer to this day. And in an ideal world, like, personally, I played the PSP version countlessly for absolutely ages. Still do. Still actually in the process of doing a starter-only run of that thing. Yes, a starter-only run using only AI. What can possibly go wrong? But the thing is, with the international version, you've got an absolute crap ton of fights in the arenas there. You've got extra parts. It runs super smooth. And if you can get the multiplayer version on any of them, it's a really cool concept because you have 5 ACs on each side. They can't use any shared parts aside from optional parts. And basically, like, the first two fight it out. The winner gets 10% of their health and ammo back, and then just moves straight into a fight with the next one on the list, and they just keep going at it until one team's left standing. So if you ever played these and thought, wow, you know, stuff like the LX cannon or napalm rockets or whatever else are super busted, that's because they weren't meant as a 1v1. It's a 5v5 with unique parts on everything, and it works so dang well in multiplayer. I think it was like VRGF or something like that. That's still doing multiplayer tournaments for the Japanese version to this day, and it's dang good fun to watch. There's still a bunch of teams playing. It's great. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, I've seen his page. You should link it in the description for people to see.
Or it's like VGFF or something. Yeah, I need to remember to link it. I always try to link it, and it's weird because I wish they had something that was a bit easier to remember. But yeah, it's so dang good. But you see all kinds of really unique ACs.
I played the international version, and I think that's the one go-to version that you should be playing if you're ever gonna play Formula Fun. Just get international.
Yeah, if you find a copy that says Extreme Battle, go ahead and chuck it in the garbage disposal where it belongs. Get the real version. All right. So yeah, international version is definitely the best. All right. So next up, Last Raven. Where would you rank this one? And we're going to talk PS2 version first, and then the portable remake.
Yes, because this is like the one where you actually have to make the distinction. Because like for AC3 and Sun Line, it didn't really matter too much.
There was
the PSP version just has more content on it, and that's it.
Well,
here there's some big changes to the game that actually really matter.
Couple quick things actually. Couple quick notes on that. For 3 portable, they fixed the like red and blue number glitch. Not really glitch, but they just basically had this weird thing where they just had them opposite of what they were intended to be. So blue was bad, red was good. Or actually, no, it only showed higher or lower. It didn't tell you which was better or worse. So it was kind of weird to read in the PS2 version. For Silent Line, they actually fixed a lot of the weird part unlock triggers. So sometimes you got a part for free instead of just you tried the thing, you tried an S rank the thing sometimes in a row and got nothing. So they fixed a lot of bugs in that one, but for both of them they added new fights, new arena stuff, new parts, all that kind of deal. All right, so what was I getting at? Oh yeah, and they took out first-person mode for Silent Line Portable. It's still there for Last Raven.
I forgot to mention the first-person mode where you actually had like a cockpit view, which was really weird, but it was there.
Yeah, if you felt that you were a bit too attached to your lunch, it's a great way to lose it.
All right, Last Raven. I have some mixed opinions about Last Raven.
Same.
This is the game where the campaign kind of like took a big dip in quality just to accommodate multiplayer. And what I mean by that is that I don't know if you ever realized that a lot of the weapons have like no ammo whatsoever.
Yep.
And that's just because of the PvP stuff. And the issue comes when you realize that the standard mission in Last Raven lasts like what, a minute.
And then you get some of them that are just freakishly long, and then multi-part ones, and then some random MT comes around and blows your friggin' arm off. Like,
so this is one of the games that started the trend that you're gonna see very often later. Of a lot of the missions are just a field with a bunch of enemies. Go kill them.
yeah.
This is the game that kind of like went straight into that.
Or a
So
cheating
this
AI.
game introduces, oh yeah, the AI, like, I think like half the enemies in this game are cheating.
I
Like,
think
they
there's
have
only 3
busted
that don't,
stats,
actually.
and they are insane. They have insane stats. They have like a lot of energy that you cannot access, and for some reason late third gen like removed the ability for the player to access these bonuses, because you know in the older games you could do that, you can get them. In here you are absolutely left with no bonus whatsoever, and you have to fight enemies that are just cheated out the ass, and it's really kind of unfair.
Yeah, the most, probably the most obvious one being Bolt, who you can fight in a whole bunch of places in the game, but, like, I kid you not, my very first experience with Last Raven, I had just 100%ed Nexus. I was like, man, this is going to be so cool. I'm waiting for my Amazon order to show up, and then it shows up, and I go excitedly to the mailbox, and I go pop it into the PS2, and I transfer over the save file. It's going to be so good. So I go out there with my quad, with the shotty and machine gun, and just, like, Bolt comes out, shoots my head off, shoots my arm off, kills with the last shot of the LX, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what happened? First mission, by the way, for anyone that didn't know.
Yeah, that's one of the first missions. Literally one of the, like, it can be your very first mission if you pick wrongly.
Showed up to investigate.
It's the one that pays the most.
Yeah,
So,
it's the only Alliance one. That's the only reason I went to it. I was like, I want to be the good little corporate stooge.
yeah.
But no.
But yeah, I have a lot of mixed opinions about the game. Mainly the part breaking. I think it's a cool concept, but it's really badly made.
True. Hitboxes
example,
are jacked on that.
Hoverlegs are basically useless in this game. They are glass. They are literally made out of glass. They're just gonna get destroyed immediately, and you're gonna left immobile, and you're gonna die. Like, hoverlegs in this game are really bad.
Yeah, they're a liability.
I will say useless.
Not to mention, you
so-
can't move anywhere in most of the maps. It's almost all of them are just like, here's a area, either a field with landmines or a field with a bunch of obstacles, or it's like you either need to go flying above something, or you need to go down a corridor, and the hoverlegs are just worse at both of those.
Yeah. Like, a lot of the weapons have either no ammo whatsoever, or they just don't hit, and the hit rate is terrible. And yeah,
Or they're the silky.
I don't the silky, and I don't particularly like. I mean, I do like Last Raven. I think it's a decent, good game, but it has a ton of issues attached to it that I hate, especially for PvP. Bacter loves it. I kind of hate it. I think Nightbreaker is the superior game, because Nightbreaker is basically Last Raven, but like without any of the issues of Last Raven.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the opposite end, this game does introduce a lot of really cool stuff to the franchise. Like, they added a bunch of like remake parts from the older games. Like you get parts from AC2, you get parts from AC1, Master of Arena, stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's even more of those in the portable one. That's why I'm just immediately putting it one rank above it.
Yeah, the portable version gets even more of those parts, and it's really cool. Like, if you're one of those people that really like to have a bunch of stuff to build with, Last Raven has a ton of parts on it. Mind it that some of them are really fucking useless, but if you want a lot of parts to play around with, Last Raven is the game to go.
And by the way, one quick note, just for anyone to be aware of here. When it comes to a lot of those remake parts that were added for the portable ones, you specifically have to make sure that you get them in each game, because almost none of them actually have a way for you to get them later. So, for example, personally, I went and I think I was at like 124 whatever % with Last Raven Portable. And then I was going through the list trying to figure out what parts I was still missing, because I think it's like 147 that's the max or something, because, you know, FromSoft doesn't understand how percentages work. And yeah, I'm like, hey, I can't find this booster. I wonder what it is. Because the ice cream scoop booster was left back in Silent Line. So, oh well, never gonna get that thing. So ended up just going and getting a file for it online. But if you prefer to do it yourself, you know, there's a good way to screw yourself on that one if a guide happened to miss the ice cream scoop booster, which some did. But you know, one thing I want to say about Last Raven, though, like, the missions in general, the idea is kind of cool in concept. It's supposed to be 24, but with mechs. Like, every hour, you're going off to a different location, depending on where you go, who lives, who dies, whether you do bonus objectives and whatever else. The story kind of changes a bit, and different people are in different places and doing different objectives, and there's all these different endings. That concept is cool. The settings are the frickin' worst for most of these, because these are settings that in any other game, like, if you look at all the maps, they were designed for an AC. You have big open areas. You see all the little choke points and everything. That's where they put the MTs. They're the grunts. They're supposed to be there. Last Raven, you are basically playing as an MT. Like, that's what these maps were designed for. Like, here's all these little choke points. Here's all these little areas you can't maneuver. Here's just a field with a crap ton of mines all over it that you can't see. Or, here, go fight these enemies that are underground. We have helicopters for this. Like, every mission in the game, just if you ever want a weird thought experiment, go through every single mission in the game. It's like, why didn't they just use an MT here? Like, you got the underground mole things, send some helicopters. You got the all the hallways that need clearing, go send those little spider drones that they use in an alternate storyline. You have all the missions where you're just supposed to stand in a canyon and snipe missiles. Like, you literally have sniper MTs over there. Use those. They were just here a few maps ago. So it kind of feels like you're doing an NPC's job most of the time, and the maps feel crappy. Like, every single mission in the power station is the worst.
Oh yeah, that power station was so bad.
And you can never avoid it. No matter what route you do, you are gonna go to that stupid power station. They were really proud of it. Whether you're defending it from the outside, or going through it on the inside, or going through it in the dark, or going out of it to go fight a pulverizer, or... Why do they love that stupid thing so much? And then the rest of the maps are just kind of like rehashes from Nexus. Like, the dome area is from Nexus, the arena thing is from Nexus. Part of that factory is from Nexus, which, again, it makes sense. This is like post-apocalyptic Nexus, more or less. Just, I don't know. It sucks to play. The multiplayer's fun. I mean, the space map's really cool.
I did enjoy the multiplayer a bit, but the multiplayer has a lot of issues that can be easily avoided by just playing Nightbreaker instead.
Yeah, very true.
Going to the topic of the campaign, I do really enjoy having like 6 different endings and 6 different final bosses. The only issue I have with this is that for some reason they kind of 2 of the bosses are nerfed. Like, I guess it's not a spoiler because like it's a super old game, but like you end up fighting Jacko as one of the final bosses. You end up fighting Evangel like in 2 different endings, but like when you fight like his AC. Both Jacko and Evangel are nerfed.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
When you fight Jacko, he's like half dead, missing an arm, and using like different weapons in the back, which are worse than the ones that he used to use.
Never noticed about the back weapons.
Yeah, I think he has like a different missile launcher.
But there is a funny thing with Evangel. You know how you could do the stumpy arm thing? Like, if you blew his arm off and then he was about to go shoot at the pulverizer and he shoots his stump?
Oh yeah.
You can't do that in the portable remake anymore. Of all the things for them to fix.
I really tried to do it, and I even like ended up fighting like a maneuver that every time you do it, the AI will fall for it and give you like a clear shot at their arm.
Yeah.
And I did it against him in the arena, to like have a sanity check because I couldn't get it to work in the mission, and it worked every single time.
Yeah.
I did it in the arena, and then I kept trying to do it in the campaign, and for some reason you just destroy his core instead of his arm. Like his arm is invulnerable for some reason.
Yeah, they had some weird fixes for that one. Like, it's strange because a lot of the hitboxes are very, very, very bizarre. Like, if you were to look at a paper doll of the AC, it's like the head would be this, like, big old cube on top of it. The arms would just be two little sticks going down. The core just kind of extends past the arms, apparently, except for the shoulders, which would seemingly be like a T-shape going sideways. And then the legs are just like one gigantic block underneath, which is kind of why hovers can't function whatsoever. But it's like when doing the rocket run, I would regularly find cases where this huge rocket would go flying and it would just like fly between the torso and the elbow or that kind of thing, or would just fly straight through a head, or would just fly straight through an arm. And then other times, like, it would just hit something just way off of their shoulder, or just hit a leg despite having clearly missed it. Like, it was just a very odd experience. But I don't know. It's hard to recommend Last Raven. It's like that's the best way to put it. It's like who is it for?
I would say that if you like Nexus and you want like more Nexus, I will say just play Last Raven.
Yeah, just know that it's gonna lose a lot of the stylishness, and the music is gonna tank hard. Last Raven, no question, worst soundtrack of the entire series. If it was Dead Silence, it would be better. For some reason, the closest I've been able to find is it sounded like they tried to copy what's that show? The Bebop thing, the Cowboy Bebop thing. Now, I specifically a bunch of the music, kind of going back and forth. Admittedly, I don't listen to too many of them. Maybe this was some other trope going on at the time with those kinds of shows. I very rarely watch that stuff, but as far as that one goes, I just happen to be playing Last Raven and hearing the soundtrack of that one at the same time. I was like, this is friggin' identical, and I don't understand why. But anyway, moving on. AC4, what do you think?
AC4. All right, I'll admit another sin. I haven't played AC4. However, I keep hearing about AC4, and I can sort of give you like a hearsay idea about what AC4 is.
Okay, let's hear it. And actually, let me turn this music down real quick because it got loud for some reason.
Yeah. The new gen games, for the people that don't really know, we usually call, like, Armored Core is divided in generations. AC1 to AC Master of Arena is generation 1. Armored Core 2 and Another Age is generation 2. And AC3 to Last Raven is generation 3. We usually group those together as old gen, and new gen will be generation 4 and 5. Generation 4 being AC4 and For Answer, and 5 being 5 and Verdict Day. Here's the thing. You absolutely cannot talk about 4th and 5th gen, or new gen as we call it, without mentioning multiplayer. Because these games are, all of them are really multiplayer focused, and you have to have experienced the multiplayer in order to get the full experience of the games. And you will get, I will get to that in a second after we get to For Answer, because I have a bunch of shit to say about For Answer. But yeah, AC4, I keep hearing that a lot of people really enjoy AC4. The thing with AC4 is that it's pretty straightforward. Like, a lot of the stuff are really set in stone. And for some reason, the part selection in AC4 is really weird. Like, in AC4, there's only one lightweight core.
Yeah.
Literally one. Imagine that. And there's a lot of, like, because this game was made with the idea of, in Gen 4, you, like, before you would just take random parts and put them together and call that your AC. In Gen 4, you kind of have, like, pre-built, mass-produced ACs, then you take their parts and make your own stuff.
Yeah, the schematic system.
Yeah, the schematic system, and none of the lightweight schematics are like just lightweight ACs built around a midweight core, with the exception of the Salax.
Is it the Sal or the Amazigh or whatever that was called?
Yeah, the AC that Amazigh uses.
Yeah.
That one is a proper lightweight. It has its own lightweight core, but like every other lightweight in the game, basically just it's built around a midweight core, and it's really bizarre. I don't get why there's only one. But yeah, the part list in 4 is like significantly lesser than its predecessors.
And
that could be for better or for worse, though.
Quick note on that. You know, so first of all, I'm just gonna preemptively slap it in B because I kind of feel it belongs there. But if you ever want to know how much of a time crunch there is, or how much of a time crunch there was for 4, look at the box art. Have you ever taken a quick or have you ever taken a close look at the box art?
Oh yeah, the box art is so stupidly dumb. I hate it. Like, have you seen the Japanese like box art of AC4?
I have not. Let's Google that mess real quick.
Like, Google it right now. It's absolutely beautiful. And then we're gonna do this later with For Answer 2, because For Answer also had the sad fate of having a terrible cover art.
Alright, let's see. Let's go to Amazon here.
The cover art of AC4 is absolutely stunning.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah, that is. That's a winner.
It's a really cool shot of Berlioz's AC supplies. Look at that.
Like, it's literally just a screenshot of the intro, but that's amazing. For those that are wondering what I'm talking about, by the way, for we're both talking about for the US version sucking. Look at this very, okay, you notice the Sega logo on there. Okay, that's... Here, let me move it a little bit because I forgot it's like a small window.
Flag right there.
Yeah, here, let me... Here, is this coming up on the video properly? Kind of, sort of... Let's zoom in on this a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to, like, fit it in here. Alright, so... That did... Dang it, that did not help at all. Okay. Here, we're going to move this window real quick. There we go. To show what I'm talking about here. You notice something very similar about all 3 ACs here. They friggin' copy-pasted them.
It's literally the same model, just fighting itself for some reason. And I don't mean the same model of AC, I mean the exact same 3D model.
Yeah, I know, right?
Copy-pasted all over it. And it's like, oh my god, did you really have to? Like, you had an amazing, like, just put them side by side and tell anyone which they prefer. And the Japanese cover is just instantly superior. I don't understand what was going in their heads with the American one.
It's just, it's so wonderfully dumb is the thing.
It's horrible. Speaking of horrible things and why Sega sucks, the game was released in the West to the PS3 by Sega, right? Not for the Xbox. I think Xbox had like a different publisher.
I don't know, but it was a very Sega feeling thing because it was like just thrown out the door.
Yeah, the English translation of the game is completely weird, and
yeah, that story's incomprehensible.
And here's the absolutely horrible part about AC4. If you were ever interested in multiplayer and you ever wonder why nobody plays it on PS3, because in 360 AC4 PvP is still somewhat of a thing, like you have a couple of people still playing it, but for PS3 it's literally unplayable because Sega took down the regulation files.
Shock. So
if you ever wanted to play AC4 in multiplayer, you are lacking the multiplayer regulations. The regulations, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, are basically the balance patches for the game. Forced to play in the version that came right out of the factory, like 1.0 AC4.
Yeah, that thing barely worked. Like, it crashed, it had all sorts of weird balance issues.
So, not only that, not only like they just took them down forever, they are no longer available for the PS3. For the PS3, they didn't release all of the balance patches,
Really?
which is something that blew my mind. I didn't even know that AC4 had up to patch 1.6. In the PS3 version, only had like patch 1.4, I think. And
Weird.
then they just killed the regulations forever, and now they don't exist anymore. So if you ever like to play AC4 PvP, I will say it's never too late to experience it, but there's something that I will mention later that may or may not change your opinion on it. If you ever want to play AC4, you better do it on the 360. Don't do it on the PS3.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as just AC4 in general, though, despite the fact that the story was, again, it was an incomprehensible mess. Like, just look at any random arcade game, look at the Sega logo, you get a general idea of how bad that translation is going to be. Like, to the point where I went through the entire thing multiple times, went and did the hard mode, which this actually introduced hard mode missions, which I really love as a thing going forward. Like, where you basically go back and they're like, oh, your backup didn't show up, I guess you're doing this solo, or, oh, well, looks like your boosters exploded, hope you like walking, or you're in the city, you can't use your Star Trek shield. Like, it's a cool little hard mode thing. That part was nice, but yeah, when it came to a lot of the stuff in there, you could tell that this thing was, like, it was given an eviction notice with about a 30-second timeline on there. So, yeah.
This is where the 90% of the missions are just enemies on a field, go kill them. Issue became rampant. It gets even worse for Answer.
Yeah, but some of the set pieces are really cool.
Where this issue of the mission design really went downwards, and so it's a really good game. It introduced a lot of really cool stuff. The movement system is amazing.
Feels great,
easy to pick up, but really hard to master. And the skill ceiling is really high and really amazing. I think for Gen in general, it's a really fun multiplayer, but it has a lot of issues with it that I'll get into later when we talk to For Answer. But yeah, if you're ever considering getting AC4, I will say it's still worth playing for the campaign, because it's still a fun game. But I would recommend it more for like multiplayer.
Yeah, for sure.
And
the campaign feels like a beta.
I said that, yeah, like the campaign is kind of like, to be fair, it's like their first AC game to the PS3, so like,
yeah,
it's kind of rushed basically.
True.
As for the thing that I said that may or may not change your opinion on if you want to play it or not, lately I've heard a lot of complaints about AC4 being unplayable on 360 because the loading times are just insane now for some reason. Like out of night, and like from one night to the other, the loading screen became insane, and now people basically don't play AC4 anymore.
Bizarre. What's that about?
Very sad. I have no idea. I just keep hearing about it, and I'll play it for like they don't understand why this is happening. It will happen for PS3 every now and then, where like you wouldn't be able to play online. But that was just PSN, the PlayStation Network, being like down or having issues or being in maintenance. But here, the game still sort of works, but like the loading screens are insanely long, and people just don't play AC4 anymore. A really unceremonious way to die, but it's what happened to the game.
True.
Like I have no idea if it's permanent or if it's ever gonna get fixed. If it gets fixed, I'll probably just write in the description of the video. I mean, not description, the comment section, that yeah, AC4 is back working. But if it doesn't, then if you don't see that message there, assume that AC4 is dead for good. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
I will say it's a B tier game.
I mean, whenever thinking about AC4, the things that always come to mind to me, like, I know for most folks it's going to be, like, let's say the Berlioz fight and stuff like that. Personally, what always comes to mind to me is a whole lot of, like, fights over the ocean. Like, there's the one where you fight some AC and what looks like a half-constructed oil rig over the ocean with all this fog in the background. That one was really cool. You got, like, just generally anything with fog and water and anything else. There's a whole lot of maps like that, and they did that very well. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. It doesn't really affect the rating any. It's just I thought it looked pretty. All right, now, you already said you have a whole lot to say about this, so first call on rating on on the Glinty Boy fan club. Where are we putting this? Because I played it for completely different reasons, I guarantee you.
I am immediately throwing the game at a B tier, and I think this is like an S to A tier game. However, it has a lot of issues that I will get into in a moment, and they have to do with the multiplayer, but also dogs in the background for some reason.
That's right, we got background noise after years.
Yeah, no, it's on my end. I think they're my neighbors. Just ignore them. Basically, the game is really good, but the campaign has that issue that I mentioned, where like 90% of the missions are just enemies on a field, go kill them, and it gets really boring real quick. But the game still has like a decent like story. It has by far the best operator in the entire series.
She comes to kill you.
The operator you get in. Yeah, like you even end up fighting her, and it's really cool. Like, this is a game where like the tests are AC, like actually gets like a backstory, where it's just your operator. Like your operator will be your sparring partner whenever you want to test an AC. Yeah, it's really cool.
Forgot about that. That mess is really cool. Yeah.
And this game is kind of like Last Raven, where you also get different endings. You get 3. Depending on who you side with, and you kind of have to replay the game multiple times to unlock all the missions. And it also has the hard mode, which is amazing. It's probably the best addition that 4Gen ever added, which is basically you play the exact same missions, but they now get twists to them, like, oh, you're getting ambushed, or your backup didn't show up, and stuff like that. It's great. I love it.
Dude, the ones where they're like, go use the VOB unit. Oh crap, our engineers sucked. We shouldn't hire the B team. Well, your mech exploded. Hope you like half health.
Yeah, it's great. And this game also has a lot of parts, and all of them are really usable. Well, most of them are really usable, and you can really just make whatever you want, and it's gonna work for the campaign. Also, this game is really funny for like people that like rockets, because the intended way, like the optimal way to beat For Answer is just running rockets. It's really funny. If you ever wanted to try rockets in an AC game, For Answer is the way to go.
Oh yeah, they friggin' roll. Good. Like the 8 spread rockets or whatever they were. Like, dude, that mess is amazing. You can just literally go fire, like, just basically just volley down just dozens and dozens of rockets. It's beautiful. It looks really pretty. Like, I will say, for For Answer, hands down the prettiest in the entire series. Yes, the individual models look washed out, but when you're like let's say big box, like you're flying out of the sky and you're looking down, there's just this beautiful skybox in the night sky and everything. This gigantic, you know, black Circuit City looking situation down on the bottom with all these lights going off everywhere, and you're having to, you know, this gunfight with this guy that's got the friggin' Gatling cannons on there, so it's showing, like, shooting these gigantic zip code sized tracer rounds everywhere, and man, it just looks so cool. There's like, for set pieces and giant bosses and everything else, it never got better. It was so good.
For Answer has a lot of really memorable and really cool moments that kind of make up for the fact that like 90% of the missions is just shooting random enemies in the face and just winning.
You know what it is?
Yeah,
it's an Ace Combat game.
Yeah, kind of.
Pretty much.
It's basically just an Ace Combat game-ish. And also, people don't give enough credit to the skyboxes of these games. Like the new gen the new like gen skyboxes are absolutely stunning. I love them.
Very true.
Armored Core in general has really cool skyboxes. Like,
even 2 and 3. Like, I remember multiple times I would just stop and look at stuff.
It's one of those details that kind of go unadverted because you don't really pay attention to the sky because you just take it for granted. But yeah, it's like, it's one of those subtle details where they didn't have to make them look so good, but they did. And that's really appreciated. It's really cool.
Very true.
And now, once we get to the multiplayer, For Answer falls apart for me horribly.
For me, it's the total opposite, but let's hear some stories.
The multiplayer of For Answer is amazing. I still play it to this day. Like, it still has a decent sized population in PS3. It has a really sizable population in, well, sizable as in like there's like 20 regular people playing it.
It exists.
It exists. It still has its population in 360, and the PS3 also has the international players and the Japanese players. The Japanese players play daily. Like, if you ever wanted to play like the game, you can just hop on in Japanese hours, and they will be there, and you can play with them. Just know that some of them may not like to play with foreigners, but a lot of them are really welcoming, and they're a really cool community to interact with.
And if this is anything like
every now and then.
I was going to say, if it's anything like it was a decade ago, they are going to whoop your ass. Anyway, moving on.
Indeed, the Japanese players are really good. A lot of them. But yeah, like, the multiplayer is active. If you ever wanted to play it, I would recommend to still, like, if you still have your PS3 lying around, or your Xbox, and you still have the game, or you just want to buy the game, just hunt it down and buy it. Like, the PvPs is still there. People that still play it basically daily. There's like no reason not to get it. However, this is when it kind of falls apart for me. The netcode of the game is horrible. Like, absolutely disgusting. And the hit registration is super weird. And the way the hit registration works is that when you shoot at someone, the damage and the hit will only be registered when they get hit in their screen, which is fine and all. The issue comes when this is a game where mechs are just boosting around everywhere at Mach 3, like quick turning, going up and down, and just like going insane everywhere, and maneuvering around in at insane speeds, and the netcode just cannot keep up with it, and you will end up get into situations where you are shooting at the enemy and you see your bullets hit on your screen, but because the latency is making them, the latency is gonna make it so that the enemy is not really where you think he is. They will either like a second ahead or a second behind, and that means that you're basically shooting at empty air. And because you're shooting at empty air, even if you hit on your screen, that doesn't mean that you're hitting in the enemy's screen. And you're basically not gonna do any damage, and you can just spend an entire clip of your rifle on someone, and it's not gonna do anything because you're just not hitting on them on their screen.
It actually led to some cases where ambushing someone was the best way to do damage. Like, I think it was 1.4 or something, where you could literally blade boost so dang fast that you turned invisible. And literally all you would ever see would just look around, there's nothing, and then you just suddenly see two, little wibbly scratches across your screen, and you're dead.
Oh yeah,
oh man,
blades are insanely disgusting in For Answer. They, like, AC4 had this issue where like blades weren't really competitive against gunners, so they reworked the way they work, and they made them super broken in For Answer. And this kind of made a split in the community where some people just absolutely shamed on bladers, but it doesn't happen often anymore. People just play whatever they want. But if you ever wanted to play For Answer, I will recommend to do it for the campaign and for the multiplayer. But keep in mind, this is a game that requires a decent size time investment to get good at it.
Not to mention, you can't tune all your parts until you get all of your... you literally have to beat the game on regular mode and then S-rank everything on hard mode in order to get all of your tuning points. That part...
Yes, you have to basically 100% the game before you even get to the multiplayer. And after that, again, the netcode, it's really wacky, and it may lead to a lot of frustration if you don't know how to do the stuff that you need to do in order to make the netcode work. Like, it's full of glitches, weird glitches, where, for example, if you run out of ammo on your right side weapons and you drop them, but you still have ammo on your left arm weapons or your left back weapon, they're not gonna track. For some reason,
that's
the
what that
game
was
will
about.
think that you are not locked on, and
Oh,
not even that. That's only one of the glitches of the game. Like, your left side weapons won't track on their own, so you need a like a right-hand weapon on that game. Even though that's not really how the game works, it's just a glitch.
By the way, one quick little thing here. This was the first time in the entire series where they actually let you turn off your FCS. Where there was some kind of weapon combo that was very similar to dropping your weapons, which led to occasionally having an accidental thing where you're like, okay, I dropped the gun that I was out of ammo for because I didn't... Like, you could turn on auto purge. Honestly, that was the best way to do it. But if you did that and you put in the combination, then suddenly it's like, wait, I can't... Why do my guns not aim anywhere? And then it was very similar to the dropping combination. I don't think the two are related, but either way, that's why it reminded me, because occasionally there would...
Yeah, the way it works is that you have a button called change target, which does different things depending on if you're playing with auto sight or not. But one thing remains consistent, and is that if you hold it down, like if you press and hold, it will turn off your FCS, and you will go into completely manual aim mode.
Maybe that's what that was.
You get a little crosshair for you. You can toggle it back on by just doing the same. Just press and hold the change weapon button, and you will get your lock on back. So yeah,
surprisingly,
I think it's really cool that you can turn off your FCS.
Yeah, and
it's really cool.
And if you ever can convince somebody to do a PvP match that way, it's hilarious. I only ever pulled that off once, but it was so dang fun. It was just like watching two drunks swing around pipes. It was great.
This game has co-op as well. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, nobody played that.
Yes, nobody played it, but it's there. The issue, the reason that nobody played it, it's kind of like overkill. First of all, you cannot really co-op every mission in the game. You can only do like the regular quote-unquote missions, like the more plot important missions or like the boss fights. You can't really do them. Like for example, the white clean missions you cannot do in co-op. You have to do them alone. But like some bosses will still be able to be co-opted. Like for example, the answerer fight, you can do it with a friend. I remember like I was one day like super bored with Bacter, and we decided to try and beat the answerer together, and we got our asses kicked because we didn't try to cheese it. We tried to like beat him legit, and yeah, we tried like 4 times and we just kept dying. It was really funny.
How are you guys spending your afternoon? Now we're gonna go fight a giant sky broccoli.
But yeah, co-op is there. Literally nobody played it, but it's better than not having it, I guess. Even if it's like an afterthought.
It was there, but
so,
yeah, greatest set pieces in the series. Interesting ideas on the multiplayer. I mean, both 4 and 4 Answer had that Battle Royale mode, which was pretty sweet. Even if it was never fair, it was just, it was cool to see so many people going at it at once, And then, like, with 4... I was going to say with 4 Answer...
players just going at it and got it in multiplayer is really fun.
And just, like, skating along the mother well and stuff like that, and, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
to summarize it, it's a good game. You just need to know that it has a lot of issues inherent to it. So if you ever wanted to experience the game multiplayer or single player, I will still recommend to do it. Even if you're one of those like that don't really like the 4th-gen gameplay, I will still give it a try. It's a lot of fun. And if you hate on one of I'll say it straight up. If you hate on any of the generations and you haven't played it, shut up. Like, you have no right to say anything. If you hate on any generation and you haven't even played a single mission of it, you really don't have a say on it. So like, if you don't really like 4th-gen but you haven't played it, I will say give it a try.
Yeah, and
if you still want to play multiplayer, you can still play it to this day. A lot of people do. Just know that it has a lot of issues that you have to cope with, and it's still there at the very least. So
yeah, it's also uniquely situated as probably, of all of the ones in the entire series, it's probably the biggest one where if you ever lose your save file, you're probably never picking that game up again. But alright.
Yeah, but there is some, like, you can upload, you just download as, like, in PS3, for example. I don't know if you can do it on 360. I think there is a way, but I haven't seen how to do it. But if you ever wanted a quick start to multiplayer and you don't care about the campaign and you only want to play multiplayer, you can just download a save file from the internet, plug it on your PS3, and then you're ready to go. You have all the parts, you have all the tuning points.
Honestly, that's probably just the way to go in general. It's like, it takes some doing.
If you're just a PvP guy and you don't want to spend like 5 hours just 100% in the game, because that's basically the requirement you have to do to play multiplayer to get all your parts and your tuning points, you just download a save file.
Hope you're ready for our Terria Carpals 40 times.
Oh yeah, that mission. But yeah, I keep saying that ACFA kind of spoiled a lot of players, because I will say that like 80% of the players that say that For Answer is their favorite game has never played multiplayer, and that's one of the reasons it's their favorite game. They have no idea. They haven't been exposed to the full For Answer experience.
Like, I will say, seeing other folks that get really into the like retro builds and stuff like that. Like, I think one of the coolest moments I personally will always remember for Answer was this time when I had rebuilt Sweet Tooth from Metal Gear, went into a multiplayer fight. They immediately canceled out of the fight, showed up with their own version of that whole thing. We went through the entire Twisted Metal roster, then went back to like retro AC builds, to the point that we have like I think she was flying around with like a Evangel's thing. I had Rotation from Silent Line. It was great. So many of those work out surprisingly well, but anyway, for stupid stuff like that, it was great. Netcode didn't even matter for those.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Now that I think about it in retrospect, it's kind of an A-tier game. Like, just know that it has a lot of issues.
It tried so hard.
Really fun to play. I still play it to this day, even though it's like kind of my secondary game. I'm more of a 5th gen guy. I'll let it be known that I really enjoy 5th gen more, especially Birthday. If I had to pick between what to play that specific day, I would probably go with Birthday. But if there's nobody playing Birthday, I will just hop on in For Answer and have a good time on there.
Okay, so
yeah.
In that case, I'm super curious to hear what you think about AC5, because personally, I'm leaning towards like immediate C tier on that. But let's hear it.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, new gen, like AC4, For Answer, 5, and Birthday have an amazing soundtrack.
True.
All of them have really good missions. I mean, music. So, if you like, even if you don't play the games, just give them a listen. They're really cool. There are some bangers in there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh shoot! Hang on. Somebody's.
AC5.
Hold on. 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
All right. Go ahead. While he's gone, I'm gonna chill my own YouTube channel. I don't know if he's gonna put the link in the description, but I make some content. I don't make a lot of it because I'm really lazy, but check it out.
Okay, back. Sorry. Somebody was beeping at the door. It turns out it was meant to be for somewhere completely different. Anyway, so let's hear about ACV. Not apple cider vinegar.
Alright, here's the issue would be, I haven't really played it, but I've been in contact with a lot of ACV players and they've told me their experiences, so I'll sort of make an idea off of that. And I think ACV, I wouldn't put it at C. I think I will put it higher. Because the thing with ACV is that they kind of wanted to go back to like the old gen days, sort of. And they fixed the issue with the missions. They did, but not really. In that, the way that the missions work in AC5 is that you have your regular missions, I think they're called the order missions or something like that, where those are just enemies on a field, go kill them. But then you have the story missions, and those missions are actually really long. They have a lot of varied objectives to them. They have a lot of boss fights in them.
Hope you like corridors.
Those missions are like a lot of corridors. I think I like that. Like there's like a lot of stuff in there in those missions, and those missions kind of give you the vibe that like, I don't know, like an AC1 mission that is super long will give you. But the game still has the same issue of 90% of the games use enemies on a field. So...
Okay, my take on it, like, okay, I will say this was partially colored by the fact that ACV was probably, like, that month was probably one of the most disappointing experiences of anything gaming related that I had ever seen. Because I had I was really looking forward to another Armored Core game. I was really looking forward to another Saints Row game. Saints Row 3 came out, was really disappointed by that, went to the store, picked up ACV, didn't even realize it had come out, went back home, was all excited, and oh boy. So the thing was, at least from my experience on the whole thing, was basically everything is entirely brown the entire time. As far as actual settings go, good luck figuring out what's even going on, because it's just a sea of brown and debris in all directions at all times. You're usually just either going through water or dirt that is brown. Then you fight some things that are allegedly out there in the fog. You lock onto some stuff, you push some buttons, and then you go forward. For the, longer ones, you're basically going, and there's some set pieces going off in the background. You still fight stuff just kind of going down a corridor, just a long linear corridor over and over and over. The only memorable bosses that I remember about ACV were the one that was a train, which basically reminded me of Darktooth from Twisted Metal, because it basically was just this big circular arena, and you chase this train around and have this shootout with it. And then you had the one against a guy that's supposed to be on your side for a while, which they end up basically pulling a pillar out of a parking structure, setting it on fire, and using it like a sword. Which, yeah, like, it's super goofy. The story makes zero sense. I think in total there's about 8 plot missions, and maybe like 15 other missions. There's almost no missions to this whatsoever, but here's the thing. I found this out later, after I had long lost interest in ever touching it again, and after I had sold my PS3 and stuff like that. Supposedly, if you go back to those missions, there's a bunch of like little hidden side missions that you could do where you have this whole second plot line with other AIs you can fight and stuff like that. But it kind of had the AC4 problem of the story being utterly incomprehensible, not really helped by the fact that it was told in media res. So your intro is kind of near the end of the game, and then you go back to this other undefined period, and then you hop to some unrelated missions, and then some other allegedly story-related stuff happens, and it's a total fustercluck. There's no arena. Like, there's a few random fights that sort of take the spot of the arena, but it felt soulless to me. Like, the multiplayer was fun, but it felt very soulless to me personally. That's kind of my 2 cents on the matter, why I put it in C. Mechanically, it's really cool how they redid the shoulder weapons. Like, they basically gave you 4 arm weapons and took out the back weapons, and like combined insides, extensions, and arms and back weapons into one category. That was really cool. But either way, so your vote was towards A?
Yeah, I will give it either an A or a B. I think it has, like, this is the issue with, like, this is From Software in a nutshell. Lots of cool ideas, weird executions.
Yeah, that one was the weirdest.
Kind of never come back.
And
but yeah, I say...
Oh.
I didn't personally... I missed out on it. I bought the sequel. I love the sequel, but for different reasons.
Same here.
But yeah, like, AC5 was a fine game. The issue is that, 1, it was really multiplayer focused, and 2, the campaign was decent, was fine, but it has a bunch of weird missions that didn't really matter. Like, the way the story stole from the art books, because I read the art books for the game, like, this is the main issue of 5th gen. Some people don't even know that it takes place after For Honor, because it's never explained, and the story is all over the place, and like,
yeah, there's barely any threads between the two. It's so weird.
Like, I would say not even 90, like 95% of the lore of 5th gen is really interesting, and even the stuff that happened in between For Honor and AC5, but it's never explained to you, and you have to buy the art books that are in Japanese, by the way, so good luck reading that. And all of the cool lore and ideas are there, but not in the game.
Yeah, I didn't even know they explained that in the art books. I was like, when I was discussing timeline stuff, it was always based off weird in-game connections. Like, technically, there's connections between that kind of indicate that AC1 takes place after Verdict Day, for example. But like, it's this weird cycle, and honestly, it seems like a very FromSoft thing for it to all be a cycle. But anyway,
I hate that theory a lot because it's not really true. Like, there is some connection between the games. For example, there's mainly 3 universes, technically 4 if you want to count Ninebreaker and
because like the only hard connections are 4th gen into 5th gen and Master of Arena into 2nd gen, but it's unclear how much of 1st gen entirely goes that way. And then 3rd gen may or may not be its own story, or maybe it's a second universe, or maybe it's a retelling, or maybe it's like, I personally like this whole split timeline thing, but whatever. It's kind of just,
so basically,
who knows?
The way the timeline works in Armored Core is that 1st gen goes into AC2. By the way, AC1 and Master of Arena happen simultaneously, and Project Fantasma happens a few years back. Then you have 3rd gen, which is its own thing.
Wait, quick thing.
There's like a 55-year split between Sunline and AC3, and I mean in Last Raven.
Quick thing.
I mean not Last Raven, Nexus.
Alright,
go ahead.
AC2 and MOA simultaneously. How's that work? Because Leos is in both of them.
AC1 and Master of Arena happen simultaneously.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they go in parallel. I don't know if I said AC2, if I said AC2.
Yeah, that's why I was confused. Like, wait, it's the same guy? What?
No. Yeah, AC1 and Master of Arena happen roughly at the same time. Like as the AC1 guy is fighting Nineball, Leo's Claim is also like doing its own thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, Nineball gets around.
Then AC4 leads up to like Verdict Day, and that's its own universe. And the rough like compressed explanation of what happens between For Answer and 5 is that in For Answer ends with you opening the path to space by destroying the assault cells, which are like mini satellites that were made by the corporations to basically prevent anyone from escaping to the space colonies, because apparently those were a thing.
Really?
And what happens is that after For Answer, after Straight, which is the main character of For Answer, opens the path to space, there's a bunch of war happening. Lots of war, lots of people dying, the planet ends up completely messed up, inhabitable.
Yeah, they at least explained that in 4 and FA to some degree.
And then what happens is that humanity ends up saying, yeah, we're kind of abandoning the planet, and they all go to space, but they leave people behind underground, and they also leave Chief and Carol, who are the main antagonists of AC5, which are artificial intelligence. They left them back in Earth to like monitor everything. And then a bunch of years happen, and people end up like coming back to the surface because, you know, the planet is not messed up anymore. And the plot of AC5 happens. Then a bunch of years later, the plot of Verdict Day happens. And by the time that Verdict Day happens, the planet is again mostly inhabitable, and they end up discovering the towers, which are the remnants of the war that happened.
Yeah, how did anyone miss the towers? Here's this giant mushroom going up to the sky. That doesn't exist. That's a tree.
Yeah, and the towers are like when humanity went to space, they left all of their technology and all of their super weapons and the ability to replicate them and stuff into the towers, and they just went out to the space colonies. And that's basically the plot. Then people find the towers, and they end up fighting again for them. And that's the Verdict War that is still going on to this day, because the servers are still up and running, and people still play Verdict Day. So it's a never-ending war that is still going on for the towers. Not that it really matters, but it's happening.
That's personally why I like the whole like Verdict Day going into AC1 thing. Just because the whole idea of like, here's this endless war, it has no possible good ending, and then like the multiplayer obviously is the endless war and whatever else. But then once everything eventually collapses and whatever else, presumably, you know, all the towers get destroyed, all this technology gets completely just knocked back to the Stone Age, then suddenly, you know, something like AC1 where they're just sort of rebuilding with whatever they had left in the basement kind of, I don't know. I like that as a theory, but again, there's nothing really super concrete to point to that aside from a few similar designs, which, you know, that could be chalked up to a bunch of things. But yeah, never knew about the space thing. Never knew about the space thing. Really wish they would have gone more into that, because that makes a lot more stuff make sense.
Yeah, I really wish that the games actually explain all of this, but it's all in the art books. And it's
Thanks,
up
art
to
books.
to translate them. Yeah, it's like...
Bring Japan,
It's
always putting
whatever.
everything in art
The
books.
story is really good. Like, one of the reasons that a lot of people hate on 5th gen is like the way the ACs look.
I think they
They're
look pretty
like-
cool, honestly. What
Yeah,
bugs
I
me
really,
is the sand.
I really love them. And the thing with the ACs from 5th gen is that they aren't really produced like now. Like they are just the relics that were left behind from the war. Like people, it's basically Mad Max, where people are used to scavenging like
Yeah.
AC parts and remaking them to the best of their ability, and just put them on and
Dude,
using
Firefly.
them to go to war and stuff like that. So
Or
I
Flamefly,
really
sorry.
love that aesthetic.
Do you remember
Yeah, like
Flamefly?
Flamefly.
Dude, that is the cool, like, that's probably my favorite meme AC in the whole series. Like, check it out, guys. I built this thing out of trash. Okay, top tier guy, let's do this. Immediately dies.
And the funny thing is that that game had a tuning system where you will get a weapon, and then the more you use that weapon, it will develop into a certain tuning, like
Yeah.
power tunings or rapid fire tunings. And for multiplayer, people will just farm Flamefly over and over again and just keep killing this one dude to like farm their weapons and get their weapons to develop into the tunings and stuff like that. It's really funny. Also, another thing that AC5 had is that it's like at launch the balance was really bad. I keep hearing about this terror build, which was like a heavy reverse joint with a bunch of shotguns.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing with the heavy reverse joint is that they buff your fire rate, so
Wait,
your
what?
your shotguns will
That's what
fire
happened?
like so quick. Yes.
Oh, I always thought
And
it was
you're-
because of the kick. Because, like, I know my personal favorite thing was just, like, take any kind of rapid fire things and just, like, run, like, kick charge, fire at their head, kick charge. Like, it was pretty darn fun to hop around in an HRJ in that one.
But yeah, like the AC5 Terror build was used an HRJ with a bunch of shotguns, flash rockets, and it would just run up to you, and it would fire so quick that the bullets wouldn't even render. 'Cause it was
That
firing
explains
so
a
quick.
lot.
And it would just melt people, and I think a lot of the population of the game, of the PvP population, never even got a chance to experience the full game because they just got annihilated by that and just told the game to go
Well,
away
that
never
and turret
played it.
tanks. Like, there were a lot of really well-built turret tanks. That, like,
So yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot of good ideas, weird executions. At the end of the day, the stupid like terror build was patched out of the game. It was nothing anymore.
Although,
But by the
Oh.
time it happened, like the game was dying, and
I mean, they old yellered the servers super fast. I know that much. Wasn't it like less than a year that they gave it?
no, it was like a year and a half.
So I'm like, yeah,
But-
it was weirdly quick. Because the maps in
Yeah.
Verdict Day are definitely worse. You didn't really see as many of the big open areas. You didn't really see matching arenas, so team fights, usually one side had a pretty major advantage and stuff like that. No,
All right, let's move on to
Oh, yeah, Verdict Day.
Verdict Day, because yeah, we have
S.
I have a lot of things to say about Verdict Day. I wouldn't put it at S. I would put it at A. I think A is like the place where it belongs.
Yeah, fair.
And the thing with Verdict Day is that you can absolutely tell Bandai Namco forced From Software to rush it out of the game like immediately, because it came out like a year and a half after like 5, and the moment it came out, just to avoid like any competition between its own like game,
they just
they
yelled
killed
it,
5.
yeah.
They just booted off the servers. You cannot play AC5 anymore. You can play the single player, but everything related to the multiplayer is gone, including the tuning system, because the tuning system for the weapons was tied to a multiplayer market where people will just grind their tunings for their weapons and they will sell them to people.
Yeah, it got changed to that like
gone
3-point
forever.
thing.
Yeah,
if I
and it
recall
was
correctly.
changed in Verdict Day, thankfully. But it sucks that it was tied to the servers, because now if you play AC5, you play with vanilla weapons without tunings, and it kind of sucks. So yeah, it's a shame.
I will say VD though, like as
Uh,
far as its campaign, which by the way, whoever came up with, I mean, whoever came up with the shortenings for these, because obviously they would have known up to this point. They're like, oh, you know, it's AA or SL or MOA or any of that. Who looked at this and thought, you know what, armored core venereal disease, this is what we need. But it just feels weird saying ACVD every time. But anyway,
yeah,
I personally love the campaign.
you can
I will say.
absolutely tell that venereal disease was rushed terribly. The campaign, I hate it personally. It's not completely bad. My issue with the campaign is that it's like 9 out of 10 missions are literally just go kill this thing that is in a field, in a flat field. Just go kill it, and that's it.
Or like try
And
to
the
snipe
issue-
stuff.
It's try to like the issue I have with that is that the campaign barely teaches you anything, and a lot of people will happen to like, oh, I beat the campaign, I'll use my my AC that I made for the campaign and go to multiplayer, and then they would get immediately killed, and
Did you
they wouldn't even have a chance.
Did you see how FromSoft tried to address that at the time? So they have a series on their YouTube channel that they kept releasing kind of around the point where people were finishing the game, because I think they must have realized that for multiplayer. So they had this series of like, here's how you do this, you know, like quick turn while turning off your boosters. Here's how you do these like jumping maneuvers. Here's how you go jump off somebody's head, or like, you know, kick and boot somebody back. And like, oh wait, we should have explained this game, huh?
Yeah, I am actually surprised. I mean, I'm not even surprised that they had to like do it after the fact, because for some reason the campaign just never teaches you anything.
Yeah.
The multiplayer like learning curve for Verdict Day, it's a literal wall, a really steep wall that you have to climb in order to get good at it.
Or you
But
just
I
get
would
really
say
lucky with physical blades.
It's absolutely worth it. I think Verdict Day has one of the better balanced games in the series in terms of multiplayer. There's a lot that can work, and I really love it. I am an enjoyer of the game. I still play it to this day. I will hop on usually, maybe even daily, and it's a really good game multiplayer wise. However, the maps are horrible.
Yeah, especially the Chicago map.
campaign-
Yeesh.
It's kind of boring, and it's repetitive, and it's just you killing people in a field, and it doesn't teaches you anything. So you're kind of forced to grind the campaign to get all your parts, and then go to multiplayer, and then you'll have to learn the game basically from zero, because the multiplayer is a completely different experience.
And also, well, the territory system had so much potential, but there's nothing explained about that dang thing. You're supposed to be able to customize all your defensive setups and stuff like that, but it never really feels different. Like occasionally you'll see somebody do something stupid with them, but there was never really a reason for people to go too into that, as far as I've been able to tell. Seemed like most of them were about the same.
They had this thing in AC5 where the way that the campaign, like the multiplayer conquest mode, will work is that people will fight for terrain, and they will hold their terrain and customize it, and then fight for it, and fight other teams that were trying to capture their terrain, the territories, and it was this whole war for controlling the map. Now in Verdict Day, it's different. The Verdict Day the way it works in Verdict Day is that there are 3 factions: Benny Day, Evergreen,
families.
and in Sirius. Basically the red, the greens, and the blue people, and they're all fighting for controlling the world, basically.
But they all have their own
around
theme music. Your menu music changes to their theme music. I love that
yeah,
detail.
Yeah, depending on which faction you ally with, your menu music will change.
Dude, I always ended up
it-
going with Evergreen for that. Just the weird haunting music, like no, no, no.
I hate the Evergreen song.
It's so
much.
weird.
I love the Benny Day one. I think
Yeah, it's
if
like
I
the
had to
Roman.
pick a faction.
Venipe
yeah,
was the one that sounded like the Empire Earth theme, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just pick the red faction if you're ever gonna play the game. But yeah, like now you don't really control your own territory, but you fight for your faction, and all of the teams will be fighting to control and destroy the other factions until a faction eventually controls the entire map, or the war just resets. I think it resets every 8 days. Like, it will, like, the three factions will come to like a peace treaty, and then the map will reset and you have to do it all over again. But that's the way it works.
And then if you play long enough,
the system is that in 5 you control your territory, your own territory, and you can customize it. Here you can also customize it, but it doesn't really matter too much. You're only ever gonna fight in your own territory whenever you're doing a special sortie, which to get a special sortie you have to win 6 normal sorties, which if you fight in normal sortie you are just attacking regular like maps.
Or realistically you're kicking open crates and trying to get loot.
and yeah, you're like destroying, like doing burn runs, which is what we call when you don't hit an enemy team, you will end up just attacking like AI. You will just attack like MTs going around the field, or just destroying boxes.
Quick, I need 14 more torsos.
Like and after you get like those 6, after you complete 6 of those, which by the way, if you hit an enemy team and you don't win, it's not gonna count towards the special sortie. Once you get the special sortie, then you go to a special, and in the special you hit either an enemy team that's also doing a special, and then it's gonna be a fight for the territory, where you're gonna be fighting in their custom territory, or you're gonna be fighting a boss.
Or something scarier than the boss, you get the player team that's all of the super highly optimized friggin' AI kill bots that somebody made.
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
The multiplayer is kind of convoluted and really weird.
Dude, a quick little moment for a story, if I could. There was this one time that like me and 3 other people were on a team, you know, operators doing their thing. They're like, oh yeah, all these AIs are just like sitting in a corner over there. As soon as one guy pops their head out, it was some like Saving Private Ryan crap that they just instantly get sniped by multiple friggin' cannons at one time. It's like as soon as anybody left cover for a second, they just immediately died. But anyway, friggin' Unax. Moving on.
I remember like having something similar where I was playing on the JP server, and me and a bunch of people were doing a special sortie randomly, like let's just finish the session with a special sortie, and we ended up like attacking like a canyon, which was this giant like choke point full of large missile turrets, and we just ended up dying really bad. It was really funny. But yeah,
like your
it's a
anti-missile
fun
with 20
multiplayer
shots.
experience, but the conquest side of the multiplayer campaign, I mean the multiplayer like experience, isn't really a thing anymore in the international server, because people just don't play it anymore. And usually people in the international server will just do free battles and just fight each other that way.
Yeah,
in
I mean
1v1s or like group fights or whatever. But
hardcore mode.
the Japanese server, it still has all of that. You still do CQ, which is the conquest, or you can just do duels or whatever you want. So, if you were ever interested in playing Verdict Day, I would still recommend doing it. The campaign is kind of bad in my opinion. It doesn't really teach you like anything about the game. But if you ever wanted to play it, I will give it a shot. And if you really enjoy it, like really enjoy it, and you wanna do the conquest stuff, you can buy a JP copy and you can just play on the Japanese server that way. And the Japs play daily, so you have a lot of activity there.
I will say, by the way, as far as the campaign goes, and actually, honestly, as far as conquest goes, I think mostly what burns people out is just the fact that you have to spend so long to get a mission, and then you may just instantly die. But like some of the boss fights you get in there are really cool. Like Zombie Motherwell is really cool and stuff like that. But one thing to note is the campaign did actually bring in something unique for Verdict Day, which was hardcore mode. And if they ever re-release stuff, I hope they bring hardcore mode to the rest of the series, because it's the coolest thing. You basically just get a whole list of different challenge rule sets that say, okay, you have this many lives, you have these kinds of damage or health or whatever parameters. Your rank, may go up or down. Your this, that, or the other may go up or down. Try to make it happen. Like my favorite one, like for example, you have one of them that's like a complete glass cannon thing where you do 10 times more damage, enemies do 5 times more damage, and you have 3 lives to get through the entire game, and just that's it. That's the simple rule set. You have another one that forces you to scavenge parts, where basically buy prices are insane, repair prices are insane, but you end up getting your unlocks a good bit faster, and you have more lives for that one. You have another one where you have to make every shot count, where just your bullet costs are ridiculously expensive, or you have another one where your rank will go up super fast, but you only have 1 life to get through the entire game. It's like I think they had 8 different rule sets like this, and it was just so yes. Cool. It was such a cool feature. Personally, that's how I played through the entire game.
I completely forgot about. I forgot about that, and I also forgot to mention that if you like Formula Front, you're gonna love Burning Day because it lets you make AI ACs.
Dude, those things are detailed.
The way it's implemented is amazing. So if you can make your own customizable wingmen, basically. You can customize everything from their parts to their behavior to how they operate to what they do in the battle. It's insanely detailed, and it's a lot of fun.
Like down to the foot. Down to the foot of range.
People just absolutely just play the game for that. I've seen a lot of people that just play the game for them for the UNACs.
Yeah, UNAC tournaments are really fun to watch.
Yeah, there's UNAC tournaments and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Like there's 3 things that Bardic Day did really well, which I will say it's the campaign, like the campaign balance. I mean, not the campaign, the multiplayer. The multiplayer is decently balanced. I will say it's the best balanced like Armored Core game out there. There is still some BS that you have to contend with, like accuracy Murakumos, which are these like imagine a knife. Now just pretend that this tiny knife is like 300 meter long, and it's just gonna hit you anyway. Like that's basically the Murakumo. It's insane. Then it's literally just this tiny stabby knife that for some reason is super long, and it's really stupid. But overall, the balance is really good. And then you also have the hardcore mode. So if you really like challenge runs, you really like roguelike kind of games,
hell yes,
and you really like Armored Core, you're gonna love playing the hardcore mode.
Dude, hardcore mode,
challenge runs in there.
Dude, playing hardcore mode as a shmup, just like getting 2 Gatling guns on an ultra lightweight. Like I always did like 1 shield and 1 Gatling gun on each side, and just like spray and praying. Like 1 hit blows the shield away, and then you just swap out to the other set, and then by the end you're running around like doing completely ineffective damage. Which, by the way, this is the one time they had a fully functional armor system and stability system, and yeah, that good luck making that actually work for you. But either way, it was there at least. But point being, it was really fun. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
But yeah, there's like 3 things that people like that really turn people away. One is that you can't fly, which is not really completely true, because you can still float around. The main difference is that in this game you gain altitude by just climbing buildings. Like you can just jump around off of walls and stuff like that, and that will give you altitude. The other stuff that I think turned a lot of people off from this game is that for some reason they think it's slower when it's not really slower than
it's fast. This game is really fast.
Fast-paced. This game can get insanely fast.
I'd argue VD is probably the fastest in the series. Like, technically, Armored Core FA shows faster, but in terms of actual reactions and doing stuff about it, like V-Day definitely takes the cake.
Pacing, VD is like insanely fast. And the other thing that I think turned a lot of people off is that not all of them like understood the way that the armor system works.
Yeah. And
I don't blame them for not doing it, because From Software kind of doesn't really explain it to you. And to put it bluntly and simply, the defense system works this way. For example, if you have a gun that you have 3 types of damage, right? You have kinetic energy, which is your like armor piercing projectiles, solid shot projectiles. Then you have CE, which is chemical energy. Think of explosive payloads like high explosive anti-tank rounds. hash, and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then you have your thermal energy, TE, which is, you know, lasers and plasma and laser blades and all of that. And the way that the system works is that, for example, if I have a gun that does 100 KE damage, and I hit and your enemy has more than 100 or exactly the same amount of armor that your gun penetrates, it's gonna become ineffective. So like if you use a gun that does 100k damage against a 100k target, it's gonna become an ineffective weapon. And what it does is that it's gonna deal 30% damage, actually 20% damage or something. I forgot. But like it's gonna do 20% of the listed damage of that weapon. So if it did 100, now it's gonna just do 20 damage.
Or if you're playing gambler mode, it doesn't matter because everything gets blown away by ineffective damage. Anyway.
However, if you attack the same target, but this target now has 99 KE damage, K defense, and you hit it with a gun that has 100, your damage becomes effective. You're actually penetrating their armor, and that what that will do is that now your gun is gonna do 80 or 70% of its damage. I think it's 80. It's gonna do 80% of its damage. So if it did 100 damage, now it's gonna hit the enemy for 80 damage. And that's how the system works. It's really straightforward. It's really simple. Just the way you make a weapon ineffective is by matching your armor with its attack power. Think of it as like penetration values, basically.
The weird thing is,
however, it's not really that well explained, and to make a decent AC, the last thing you want to do is stack everything in a single defense. If you have to like make it balanced.
Yeah, that's what shields are for.
Specific weapons.
Like if you know you have to sacrifice,
shields.
You got shields for every type.
Yeah, so for example, the usual, like for example, the common KE number is like 1870. That's the amount of damage that high-speed missiles do. So a lot of people just run 1870 to negate those missiles. And CE varies, but a lot of people just bring like 2k, like 2096 CE damage to block a specific weapon and stuff like that. And you never want to stack everything in a single defense, otherwise you're just gonna get killed by other things. That's why people think that it's rock, paper, scissors, but it's not really that. It's just that you just have to be mindful of what you want to avoid by actually stacking defense against, and what you want to avoid by just evading it by moving or just taking cover and stuff like that. So it's a simple system, but it makes building a decent AC kind of hard for people that don't really understand the system.
Plus, one way they probably could have explained it a bit better, there's always been 3 damage types. Because it's still shell, energy, and heat. It's just that the heat doesn't build up. It's just its own thing now. Like, it's literally always been 3. Technically speaking, it simplified it by making it more complicated.
Yeah, like they really simplified the way that you make an AC, but it's like the game pretends kind of, or like the game kind of guides you towards stacking a single defense, because like midweight parts, all of the midweight parts are all KE, all of the lightweight parts are all KE, all of the heavyweight parts are all TE, all of the quad and reverse joint parts are all CE. And as people think, oh, then that means that if I want to make a quad, I'm gonna be stacking CE defense, and that's completely wrong, because if you stack everything on CE, you're gonna get killed by rifles in seconds. You're gonna get annihilated by anything thermal. If you make a lightweight with full KE part, you're just gonna die immediately to heat weapons and lasers. If you make a heavyweight that only stacks thermal energy defense, you're gonna get killed by the other two, and you really gotta just make your AC balance instead of just stacking into a single defense. And I think that's one of the failings of the game. They kind of don't explain to you that the way to go is being balanced instead of being overly specialized in a single thing.
Yeah, plus
And the campaign doesn't really force you to do either, because you can just make whatever in the campaign and just beat the game that way. But the moment you get into PvP, it's when you're getting hit by the revelation of how the game actually works, and yeah, it's a steep learning curve basically.
Yeah, plus a lot of the campaign was like, you're the big important thing here to stomp away all the problems, and then in multiplayer the fighting is really scrappy. Like, basically, like, for example, my personal favorite was like heavy verse joint, burst battle rifle in one end, so basically legs for kinetic, battle rifle for chemical, and then a charge laser on the other hand for thermal, and just like running, oh, and a little shoulder machine gun thing, and then just like running up to somebody and repeatedly curb stomping them, hoping that this somehow gets past all their defense, and if that doesn't work, a pile bunker in the back, which, I mean, this was the game that they finally made parry blades not suck, because pile bunkers, basically, you get a few, like, it'll fire maybe 4 times, but that sucker's gonna get through everything, even if it's really hard to pull off. Like, it's actually worthwhile to keep one.
There is a pile bunker that has literally 2 shots. That's all you get, but it does like 49,000 CE damage. So you're basically gonna kill anything in one hit if you make it hit, and it's a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, it felt really good. Like, I remember there was a tournament. There was the only time I ever got a win in a multiplayer tournament, in which we were doing that map with the little, like, tunnels in the canyon and whatever else. And the guy was very clearly winning. He was way better at the game. So finally, just threw the guns away, pulled out the pile bunker, hit on top of the tunnel, and I just looked through the little scan mode thing. He's coming down the tunnel, just drop down from the front and punch him in the face. I'm like, that worked? Sure, why not? Scan mode, though, is probably the biggest problem in the game, in my opinion. Because it's probably why they have sand everywhere.
This is the one main difference between 5th gen and every other generation. In every other generation, you had a radar. So you can just use the radar to see people far ahead or people that are behind you or something. In 5th gen, your ACs don't really have a radar. However, they have something called a scan mode, where you can toggle between combat mode and scan mode. It's kind of implied that in the other games your ACs had this, because, you know, whenever you finish a mission, your AI computer will say, oh, mission was finished, switching the AC back to normal mode, and stuff like that. Or when you start the mission, it will say, oh, combat mode initiated, but you never had control over it. Now in 5th gen, having control over what mode your AC is in, it's your lifeblood.
Yeah. Because
while you're in scan mode, you can retaliate, you can shoot any of your guns. However, you can scan the enemy, and what that will let you do is that you see everything about it. You see all of its weapons, what their weapons hit for, all of their defenses.
Their emblem takes a quarter of your screen.
You even get like a graph that will tell you how much damage your shot will do based on distance, and it's your own attack power and stuff like that. It's really great.
Yeah,
and you also get recon units, which are little like scan drone things that you shoot over, and whenever an enemy is inside a recon unit's range, you can see them through walls in scan mode.
Yep.
So you literally get wall hacks.
And you can actually like shoot these out to like plant them places. Some of them will hover in place, some of them you shoot out, some of them will stay above you. There's a whole bunch of different options there.
Yeah, like you can even like have a teammate and you shoot a recon unit into them, and the recon unit will be stuck to your teammate, and now you can see whatever is like near your teammate. Or you can just do it at an enemy. You can just shoot a recon unit into an enemy and it's gonna get stuck in their AC. And now you can see exactly where they're going everywhere, even in combat mode.
I really love that you could make like multiplayer support builds for VD. Like you just have like an FCS booster, and like you do the trick with the scan units and things like that. Oh, there's so much cool stuff you can do with that.
Yeah, and the issue comes when now the way that the game works is that when you're in combat mode, your AC is super drainy and it's gonna consume a lot of energy. But when you are in scan mode, everything related to combat gets turned off. So your arms no longer drain you, your weapons no longer drain you, your FCS no longer drains you, and what this means is that you get a shit ton of energy back when you're in scan mode. So the way to be like optimal for like PvP in that game is that you have to chain scan mode and combat mode together in order to be effective.
That's why watching videos is annoying.
Combat and stuff like yeah. And if you watch like a decent PvP video from 5th gen, you will see that they are flicking between combat and scan mode everywhere, every time, and it's really cool once you get down to it. But a lot of people didn't get this, and they are all in combat mode every single time, and they never switch to scan mode. And if you don't switch to scan mode, you're basically blind. You're not gonna know where the enemy is, you're not gonna know what you're fighting, you're not gonna know where they are going, you're not gonna get your energy back because your AC is super draining when it's in combat mode, because your generator has to power your arms, your weapons, your FCS, everything related to combat. And now you're just gonna die because the enemy is just gonna sneak up on you and kill you, and you won't have the energy to run away or retaliate.
And this is without even getting into the fact that you've got like kneel down, like shields that pop out of your knees to go fire sniper cannons and things like that. There's like a bunch of these little cool, very physical mechanics to interact with all the game world and everything else. I know personally though, it just like it bugged me because it feels like the reason that they put so many sandstorms everywhere, and it just gave me a headache. Like, it was just hard to look at some stuff there, but mechanically it's a really cool idea. But you know, cool ideas, weird implementation as always, like you said.
Yeah, this is just From Software being From Software. A lots of good ideas, but they are really poorly explained. And if you don't like, if the game, it's not gonna explain any of this to you, and it kind of does, but not really like good enough for you to like learn it. So if you're just a new player that hasn't had any interaction with multiplayer, you may end up not knowing any of this, and you're gonna be fighting people that actually do know this, and they're just gonna kick your ass. There's no way around it, and you're not even gonna stand a chance. So the grind you have to do to get good at the game is really high, and a lot of people that may have liked the game didn't know any of this information, and they basically were left in the dark, and they just got to stop playing because they just never figured out why they were losing, why they were like doing poorly in the game.
Yeah, and
it's a shame.
And feedback-wise, it's a little weird because sometimes all you would see when you're in the middle of a multiplayer fight is like stagger, 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 and then you're flying around in a jetpack, and it's like, where did my AC go? Like, well, somebody got effective damage off on you, probably flanked you, probably kicked you in the back and gave you, you know, a shotgun enema, but who knows what just happened there? But you're flying around.
Also, in case you didn't know, and then what I mean in case you didn't know, I mean the people watching this, you know how in every other generation you needed a melee weapon to do melee combat?
Yeah, that.
In 5th gen, melee weapons are optional.
It's your foot.
You always have a melee weapon in your AC called your foot. Now you can literally just kill people to death in the game. So like every AC, no matter what they were using, they can do melee combat. They can just kick people and kill them. It's great.
Everyone's had a kicking match at some point. You know what's funny though? Hang on. Sorry, completely lost my train of thought there. Dang it. Sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I remembered what it was.
The game.
The Moonlight.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Sorry, the Dark Moonlight thing. There's one weapon in there. Speaking of melee weapons.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to this day, it's still super rare because there were only a few ever released into the game, but they made a black version of the Moonlight. And you still see it come up on the Reddit regularly of like, oh crap, I saw somebody using this thing. Let's start a cult. Anyway.
Yeah, there is this weapon called the Another Moon.
Another Moon, that's right.
The X99 Another Moon. And what it is just a clone of the Moonlight laser blade. You all know the Moonlight, the ever-present Moonlight laser blade. But this one has a purplish color, and it's like a dark version of it. But it was a limited edition item that you only get if you pre-ordered Last Raven Portable. Not a lot of people did.
I did. I never got it.
if you ever see, it's a freaking unicorn basically. If you ever see like a purple laser blade attacking you, that guy has the another moon, and it's really cool to watch in action. But not a lot of people have it. You cannot really obtain it by just playing because it's just a random item.
It must have been Japan only, though.
It might have been Japan only, but I think a lot of like international players, well, not a lot, but like 2 people had it. But yeah.
Because I legit pre-ordered every one of these the second anybody rumored anything about them, and nothing. Like, ever. So I don't know what else there was to it. Anyway, moving on.
But yeah, basically, the game has a lot of mechanical skill involved. It has really cool, like, interactive mechanics on it. But the game does a really bad job of explaining it to you, and basically, the learning curve is really steep.
Go watch FromSoft's YouTube channel.
So yeah, the game has a lot of potential in it, but it's none of its potential is ever explained to you. So you gotta interact with the community basically to learn all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very true.
It's a really good game. There's a really good game buried in it, in all of those mechanics, but the game does a terrible job explaining it. So
hopefully, once PS3 emulators are up to scratch, somebody will make a no sand mod. Looking forward to that day. Because, like, legit, yeah. I could never play that thing for more than 30 minutes without getting a headache.
I will say, if any of you people ever had like a passing interest in 5th gen, or just disregarded 5th gen because, oh, I cannot fly, or oh, my AC looks different, or whatever, or any stupid, because I will say it straight up, that's a really stupid way to disregard the game, because it's really good.
Yeah.
Give it a try, see if you like it. It's only like, you can buy it off of PSN for like $20. Or you can just find a cheaper physical copy and just play the game. It's still, the servers are still up and running, there's still a community for it, and you can still join Discord servers about it and find people to play with and everything, and you know, give it a try. It's never too late until it's too late and the game is forever killed and you will never get to experience it.
Yeah, although we still don't know what's going to happen first, whether they're actually going to announce an AC6 ever, or if this game's actually going to get its servers closed down.
And they're gonna kill the servers, yeah.
Kinda, sorta, we did get one more. This is not the end of the list.
Oh boy, this is the ever...
You ever play this one?
Like, I haven't had the chance to play DXM, but I did play it a bit. I didn't particularly like it. It's like a weird mix between like 4th gen, but like it's not really, because it's kind of like 5th gen-ish. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't know how to explain it. I didn't like the aesthetic too much.
Oh shoot, there's one more I forgot to put on this list actually.
But yeah, this is DXM, Demon X Machina. What are your takes on that? Because I didn't finish it, I only played for like 30 minutes. And then I was like, yeah, this is not for me.
I'll be honest, I have never had any intention to get a Switch, but I did watch the absolute crap out of it and watched multiple people do multiple runs of the thing. And basically, what it looked like is an arcadeized version of 4th gen, where you could do some extra stuff. It kind of reminded me of... I'm trying to remember, there was this like mech fighting game back in the 90s on PC. I can't remember the name of it, but it kind of reminded me of like that mixed with For Answer to some degree. The bosses seemed pretty cool, the mechanics seemed pretty solid, overall gameplay was pretty fluid. The story was some just like Saturday morning cartoons, probably look like Game of Thrones by comparison nonsense. Like it was pretty comically bad as far as that goes, but the premise was pretty cool. Like from how they were describing it, you know what I thought this was going to be? I thought it was, like, you know how when going through AC1 or to some degree AC2, and they had that bit in there where if you wound up going into debt, you ended up getting your Human Plus upgrades, and then the implication was your character's basically like doomed to a future of getting completely screwed in the head. I thought it was going to be like that. Because as soon as all the demos and things came out, they're like, look, here's all these cybernetic upgrades. Oh, hey, these AIs can't be trusted. Oh, here's all this stuff. And I thought it was going to be something like the more you made the game easier for yourself, the more you, like, turned on yourself or something like that. And, you know, Granted, I was probably giving them way too much credit. They never once even tried to delve into that. It was literally just, hey, you can see better now. Cool. There's no downsides to this. I still kind of wish that for one of these games they would explore that a bit more. I always thought that whole, like, the upgrades ruining people's humanity thing was a really cool angle that they never really explored much. Like your Wildcat from AC1 or any of that. But
they kind of did in 5 and Birthday.
Yeah, true. I guess that's what the bonus missions kind of were with 5.
Yeah, because in 5 you had these bonus missions where you end up fighting like this super elite mercenary squadron called the Zodiacs.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, if you do well in an AC5 mission, like sometimes it will trigger the appearance of a Zodiac, and you will end up fighting the Zodiacs. And the whole deal with the Zodiacs is that they are kind of like these people that were turned into like artificial intelligence and like put into their ACs, and now they're just like wandering battlefields and stuff like that. And a lot of them have like regret about it and want you to kill them and stuff like that. It's really cool, but that's like the most extent you're gonna get out of that exploration.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see more.
Also, do you know what those people are called, or what like the AI things are called? Because they have a name. It's never told to you. It's in the art books, but those people that were humans and then they were transformed into artificial intelligence, or like they were just digitalized.
Toasters.
They're called Fantasma beings.
Nice. There we go. Finally get a call back.
As a reference to Project Fantasma.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Okay, so, by the way, there's 2 things that we actually have forgotten on this list. And, alright. First of all, we kind of forgot to put Metal Wolf Chaos in here. It's too late to add it now, but, I mean, I think that would go easy S tier, but... It's 5th gen.
Yeah, it looks like a ton of fun.
It's 5th gen, but it's absolute chaos and madness. And
you're the president of the United States.
And it's somehow a happier timeline starting in 2016.
Also, another, now that I saw like DXM in the list, I kind of forgot to mention, one of the main things that turned me off of that game was that there was only bipeds. Like,
true. Yeah, that was weird.
Where are my tanks, dude? Where are my quads? Where are my hover legs? Where are my reverse joints?
Not gonna lie,
in the game.
When they showed how the movement worked and they showed that there was a tank and there was a tank with its top blown off, dude, I secretly had a thought in the back of my head of like, you know what? Rips off his legs, just sits himself down on that tank and moves on. That would have been so cool, but no. You can't do that, unfortunately. Apparently you can get your limbs blown off, but I never saw that mechanic play into much of anything aside from occasionally replacing a part. But, what can you do?
But yeah, one of my favorite things about Armored Core in general is that all of these legs will have all of them will have like their distinctive quirks and pros and cons. So, like, playing a quad is gonna be different from playing a biped. Playing a tank leg is gonna be different from playing a lightweight or a hover leg. So like, it's a really cool aspect of the game and adds a lot of depth to it. Especially in 5th, for example, like 5th gen tanks are like an entirely different skill set that you have to master to make them work. And then DXM went up and only has bipeds, and it's like a shame, because I really enjoy the fact that there's so many playstyles like in all of these legs just for them to be taken away, and there's only bipeds, and it's kind of like a bummer to me.
I mean, and not to mention there's always opportunities, like if you ever just happen to suddenly have a feeling where you're cutting some onions and feel you're not crying enough, you could always play a hover in Last Raven, so there's that too. But
if you ever want to do a challenge run, just beat like Last Raven with a hover leg.
I've done it, it sucks. Don't do it ever. It's the worst. I don't know why so many people challenge run Last Raven, because it really is just not great for challenge runs. It's not a challenge as much as just like, how can you possibly avoid as much of the game as possible? Like, seriously, even the friggin' rocket run was just awful. Friggin' Ultimate Zenata with rockets. Why did I bother doing that? Anyway, so there is one more Armored Core thing that technically isn't on the list, nor is it an Armored Core game or even anything related to mechs. Because there's only one other universe connection to the entire series, and that's one of the helmets in Dark Souls. So, don't have that on here either. Probably another S tier.
You know what we forgot?
What's that?
This is like a big miss.
What a miss?
To put on the list. Frame Ride.
Oh shoot! Right, that exists.
Have you played it? I did play it, and I had a lot of fun with it until the final boss rolled in, and the final boss absolutely sucks. It stinks. It's one of the worst final bosses I've ever fought in anything.
Fair. Gonna have to look that up then. No, with Frame Ride, okay, here's the thing. I don't know, because I remember playing something that looked a hell of a lot like Frame Ride at a Sam's Club back when they still had an electronics section, like in the town where I was growing up there. And I know they had something that looked a hell of a lot like it, and it's surprising how often they had Armored Core games at that place. In fact, that's how I found out Silent Line even existed. But because like literally I get there and I'm like, hey, it's AC3, this is gonna be fun. I'm just waiting for my mom. Oh wait, what's this? There was more. But yeah, like they actually had a demo version of Silent Line that had these like gray ACs that you could take through the one where you're going back to what the hell is that, like not Sector 513, it was the other one with the opening doors. You had to wait for one door to open up, but the one where you had that mission, and then you had dang it, what was it? I want to say it was the assassinate engineer mission, and that's about it. We had like 5 different ACs you can use.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah. It's...
but yeah, want me to go a little bit into detail about Frame Ride?
Yeah, go for it. I want to hear it. Cause...
All right. You can there's things called as squires in that game, which are basically MTs. So the game is basically just an arena run, where you fight arena opponents back to back. But you and the arena opponents can summon your own MTs, so you can have your little army of MTs fighting for you. They're called as squires, and you summon them with magic and shit. It's really fun.
Yeah, this sounds very FromSoft right now.
So yeah, if you ever wanted to a game to stream or just to explore a little bit, give Frame Ride a try. I will say it's like a C tier game, but still really good. I will give it a shot. It's fun to mess around with. It also has the prototype to 5th gen's defense system, where here you have a magic affinity, and that magic affinity will be strong against another one and weak to another one, and you gotta plan ahead. If you're fighting a fire opponent, don't bring ice or something, because otherwise you're just gonna die. But yeah, give Frame Ride a try. The one thing I didn't like about it though is that the controls are kind of really clunky.
So it's a FromSoft game.
Yeah, it's kind of a given at this point. And you can't really mix and match parts. And what I mean by that is that the way you build your frame, I think they're called frames, I will just call them frames.
That makes sense.
The way you build your frame is that you pick your inner frame, which is either a lightweight, a midweight, or a heavy, and then you just put the armor parts on it. So you can only use heavy armor parts on a heavyweight, you can only use midweight parts on a midweight, and you can only use lightweight parts on a lightweight. So you cannot really do that thing that you can do in Armored Core, where you make I don't know, use heavy legs with a midweight core, lightweight arms, and a lightweight head. You can't really do that here, but it's still a fun time. I will say, give it a try. It's fun to play with.
I'll give it a look. Yeah, I mean, a lot of FromSoft things, you could really tell that a lot of the ideas that they're even still running with at this point started off way back when. One of the more mind-blowing experiences for me personally was, for example, with the Souls series there. It was cool to see a lot of the other stuff on there, but I had a soft spot for DS2. I know, Heretic, whatever else, but personally, I just really like the
PS2.
Yeah, I just love the feeling of it. I don't know, something about it was just very calming and relaxing. But anyway, have you ever played Shadow Tower?
I have not, unfortunately.
You might have,
but not too much.
So specifically Shadow Tower 1. Shadow Tower Abyss was very different, but it's kind of incredible how many mechanics you can clearly tell later on became DS2. From a lot of the ways that the enemies worked, a lot of the ways that a lot of the gear worked, even down to the way durability just kind of forces you to constantly swap between different stuff. Even some of the map designs look a little similar and stuff like that. But It's probably my favorite horror game on the PS1, to be honest, because okay, favorite scenario of mine because it was pretty much the last thing before I lost that save file. It was the water world. So basically you have all of these different sections in this giant tower that are just different worlds of different places. And so it's this place that's all covered with water, and you have to take off all your equipment to get in the water, because it'll end up getting corroded off you, basically. Don't ask how that works. Anyway. So you step in the water, it ends up melting your stuff, and you find, okay, there's some fountains over here that'll restore some of your health. You can sacrifice some of your health to go repair your equipment over here. You need this other equipment to get past this area over here. You can sell some of your equipment to get back healing items in this other space. It's like this whole weird constant trade economy going on there. But so end up going through this water world and whatever else. A bunch of equipment breaks, fight a bunch of enemies down this hallway and get through all these traps. Suddenly get into an area that's just all on fire, sneak through the fire area. And then there's just a staircase and no enemies, and everything's dead silent except for a little hum off in the background. So go up the staircase, look around, nothing, and there's just a little peephole down a hallway, and I go down the hallway, and there's just some violin music playing. And just, you look through the peephole, and you look down, and there's this little imp with a violin just playing, and just looks around, gives this weird crooked stare, and just suddenly your health starts disappearing. What the hell just happened? That game is so friggin' weird. But anyway, I would highly recommend it all the same.
One thing I forgot to mention about frame rate, which I don't know if it's true or not, it's a rumor that I keep seeing floating around. Apparently, frame rate was supposed to be a prototype for AC2.
Weird. Okay.
And then
are they going a Gundam direction?
I guess it didn't look like frame rate at first, but it was supposed to be this AC2 prototype, and then they ended up scrapping it, and instead of making it AC2, they just made it frame rate. They just put a Dark Souls skin on it and call it another thing, and then they made the AC2 we all know now.
I mean, Metal Wolf Chaos could have been AC5.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Metal Wolf Chaos was the prototype.
I mean, the movement's the same. It's clear. It's literally the exact same movement and lockbox and everything. It's kind of bizarre. You just kind of can whip out different types of guns, and honestly, even a lot of the guns look similar. In Verdict Day, you could absolutely remake the entirety of the Metal Wolf with no issues. I still can't believe it took so long for an official release.
Yeah. But anyway, what's your take on this tier list we have here? Are you satisfied with it or not?
I think it's good, with the one thing I'm kind of tempted to put, with Silent Line, kind of tempted to move the portable one up slightly higher just because of the glitches that they fixed. The original SL, a lot of the unlocks were, they were bugged. They were very bugged. They ended up fixing a lot of that in the remake. I mean, granted, it ended up, like I said earlier, just kind of giving you parts for free sometimes, but would definitely take that over having to redo the same mission over and over until the trigger worked.
Yeah, I remember that from playing it.
But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty good where it is. I think there was also an Armored Core Mobile 3. I'll be honest, I just couldn't be bothered to look up the picture for it. I only saw pictures for the first two on their website, so... they exist.
Yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty solid list.
I think we were neutral enough about it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like there maybe should have been an E or F tier for Last Raven, but that's just personal feelings. No, I kid. It's not terrible. It's just weird. So what, final words on everything? Cool ideas, weird execution? Just sums up the entire series?
Basically. That's from Software Game Design 101 right there.
Sounds like we each got a couple games to go try out, too. Gotta get you trying AC2.
I really need to play AC2.
Gonna try out some frame rate at some point.
Yeah, a bit of warning about frame rate. Hold on.
Oh, actually, technically, there is one more that we missed. Technically, two more. I just realized. What else? Do you remember what other series they made with mechs?
I don't know.
Steel Battalion.
Oh yeah, Steel
Dude,
Battalion.
Original Steel Battalion with like the friggin' airport that you had to bring with you as a controller. Easy S tier just for like the most amazing gimmick I've ever seen. I doubt those controllers even work anymore. The Kinect one probably would just skip E tier, drop to somewhere along Z tier for just not working at all. But still, original Steel Battalion. You know, the cool thing about it, while it had that controller, it had all that other stuff. Technically speaking, it started hardcore mode from Verdict Day, because if your pilot got killed off at any point, your save file was deleted. And I never really realized that when people were talking about all the other stuff about it, but it had all these cool simulation aspects. For anyone unfamiliar with it, by the way, basically it was a very, very clunky mech game where you're basically, I think it literally was just called a vertical tank. So you just clonked around, and you had this, I think it was like a 64-button controller that came with it that just had all these different functions, like from cooling to turning on and off different weapons, and, you know, turning and stomping and clomping, and you had to radio in commands to AIs and stuff like that. So it's this really cool simulation thing that, as far as I'm aware, you can't even emulate because just it doesn't work. But yeah, despite all of this stuff, they made a Kinect sequel of all things that just like never registered your commands or anything, and for some reason they never released those on anythings whatsoever. So you can't really fully experience it. But yeah, it was a roguelike, basically. The first Steel Battalion was a roguelike. Your character could eject, in which case you'd have to go and get funding for a new robot. And if you ended up running out of mechs or your character died, that was it. Your save file was deleted. That's the end of that. Moving on. So I just love it as a concept. I always wish that I got a chance to play it, but never have. And I'm not about to shell out. I think last I checked, it was like $600-something for one of those controllers. So.
Oh yeah, good luck finding one of those controllers, and one that actually works for not a terrible price.
Right.
Because there are relics. From the past there.
This was like the Xbox One era, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was from the Xbox, like the
original Xbox, yeah. Freaking terrible name, Xbox One.
It's so bad. No, everyone calls it the X-Bone or something.
X-Bone, yeah. X-Bone and PS4, but... Or, you know, the Bloodborne box.
Yeah, I never bought the X-Bone anyway.
Yeah, we literally only got, like, my wife and I picked up a PS4 years ago for as a Christmas gift to each other, and I think I've got, like, Bloodborne and Fallout 4 on there, because Fallout was... Oh, yeah, and a dancing game. My daughter likes the dancing game. It's like, we got Just Dance if you don't feel like shelling out an extra $40 for all the extra music. It's got, like, 12 songs on there.
Jesus.
But hey, they were in the bargain bin. I think like, oh no, Bloodborne and Outer Worlds. Those are the only two things that we actually, you know, bought. Everything else was just kind of there. And it's been the Netflix box for the last couple of years, so, you know. What can you do? But I think that about sums up the list, though.
Damn right.
All right, so AC6 predictions.
If I'd say what I want from AC6 is that I want them to make something new. Like I really don't want them to like remake any of the or like take ideas from any of the other games. Maybe you can take the ideas, but like I want to see what a fresh take on the AC formula will be from Software. And just keep in mind, like every of the number entries in the series, it's not gonna be perfect. It's gonna have its flaws, and it's gonna try a lot of things, and some of them may work, some of them may not, but it's gonna be interesting to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
See, you know what I'd really love to see explored in an AC6 is like the same thing you see that the AIs go through throughout a lot of the middle of the series. Like where you have to start off as an MT and you kind of like work your way up and you end up eventually doing well enough in this piece of crap that you finally get an AC and stuff like that. And what I want to see, like, I mean, something like that anyway. It just would be cool to see more of that kind of career path type situation. Because personally, I always really wanted the ability to play through 3rd gen as an MT. Just complete with all the limitations that comes with. And aside from potentially some mod potential on Voctor's side, and that one game that came out of China, I think it was, that's really got nothing to do with the actual MTs. But have you seen that, by the way?
I've seen that MT game. I even played it a bit.
It didn't seem like it did any of the actual MT stuff. They're like, we upgraded the MTs to the point that they're just an AC now. It's like,
yeah, it's kind of like you just buy an AC that works like a pre-built MT thing, and it works weirdly in its own way. It's kind of weird. I think it's a good idea, but you know.
I just would have liked to see more of like, kind of like what Front Mission 3 did, where there's just a lot more of just exploring the setting and stuff like that. Like, just a lot more time building, exploring the setting, you know, looking around. DXM kind of tried to do that a little bit, but it got a little too anime about it. Like, I was talking to a friend over a decade ago when From Answer was a thing, and just stuff that would have been cool for ACV. There's like, it really would have been cool if just you have your AC over there, you know, you spend some of your time sourcing parts, or you have to upgrade your way up from an MT, or, you know, maybe just there's more of this background politics stuff you always see in the emails that maybe that ends up coming up more. Maybe people try to sabotage you. Maybe part of your whole career through the whole thing is just, you know, essentially doing shady stuff to get friends, to get you up there on the career ladder, so to speak. I don't know. I thought that kind of corporate ladder aspect just didn't really get explored very much. But
oh yeah, one thing I really would like to see like an AC game try to do is like, you know, usually you just play as the pilot, but what about your repair crews and your mechanics and your operator and everything? It would be really cool to basically have Peace Walker, where you have to like recruit your mechanics, you have to recruit like your operators. Basically, you just make Peace Walker, but you're an AC pilot. Dude.
No,
that's what I want.
Dude, you have AC3. You go fight Kaiser in the arena. You like hit him with a howitzer, knock him over, pull him out of the cockpit, go back to the garage, knock his repair crew unconscious, and just Fulton him back to base. Oh man, but
literally just make Peace Walker with ACs, dude. That would be amazing.
Yes, that would rule. Which, by the way, what kind of meth were they on in Last Raven? You have 1 hour, we have 3 missing limbs, and we need to find a new head somewhere.
The most overworked crew ever. Poor guys, you're literally fighting a war in a day.
Right?
And you have to repair this one dude's AC over and over again in like a matter of hours.
We can only afford to pay you in nachos. Deal with it. It's all that's left in this world. Nothing will grow, it's just corn comes out pre-baked now.
The other concept I kind of want to see what From Software will do with is transformable ACs. We kind of get like glimpses of them, like in AC3 you kind of had like an MT that like transformed into a plane, and
true,
it could transform into like a biped thing too, and you had 9-volt Seraph. 9-volt Seraph can transform into a plane, so I wonder what a transformable AC game will look like.
I mean, you had 5th gen. You could transform into a building.
Yeah.
That would be really fun. Did you ever read any of the articles when, like, when For Answer was still coming out, like all the interviews they were giving?
No, I haven't seen them.
It's like they made it a weird point to try and say like, oh, you're gonna have your transforming AC. You can, you know, you're gonna be able to turn into a jet, and you're gonna be able to change your form at will, and all this other stuff. And ultimately, what they were trying to say is the VOB exists. It'll happen like 4 times in the game. That's neat. Now go fight a train. But you know, I think there was probably some translation error, but they really tried to go nuts with that one. I mean, I guess the closest you got, you had White Glint's core. That was kind of neat. especially when you combine that with like
Yeah.
the fragile parts. You just turn into a pigeon at that point. But
I like that a lot about the For Answer, where like a lot of the cores have like unique overboost gimmicks.
yeah, they look really
Like
cool.
I don't know if you ever seen the Argyros core that has just a big ball that transforms
Yeah.
into your overboost.
Yeah, that one's really, really cool. Love that one. It's just like a
And there's a really
reactor
cool
that's just
detail.
outputting, basically.
Yeah, there's a really cool detail about that core that not a lot of people realize, because you know it's in the front of the AC. You know how that core has like two balls, the big ball that is your overboost and a little one in front of you?
Yeah, the like
in
Pacific
front of the
Rim
core?
looking thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the little like ball thing at the front will also like move around when you overboost. Like it will like look around and then activate your overboost, and you'll just fly. It's really
Nice.
funny.
Man, there's a detail that literally no one could notice unless they were staring at them from the front.
Yeah, like the only way you're possibly ever gonna notice it is like, I don't know, if you're like looking straight down.
I wonder if that's why they incorporated that thing for 5th gen, where you could just like turn on your overboost and turn on your boosters and whatever else, and presumably fry your crew before you go get a new one, because it's a Peace Walker now.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? That idea is awesome. We should go track down every person who did 5th gen and just like go make it.
Come on, From Software, just take Peace Walker, make it AC, dude, make it happen. It's gonna be great.
I mean, you got like Kojima running around doing whatever at this point. I see no reason why he wouldn't. I mean, you got the Armored Core people doing whatever. You got the. Oh, we didn't talk about that one time that they did they did that thing with like the artist from Metal Gear. What was it like? It was the front mission, but not really. And it was some weird spy game that apparently was all buggy.
Yeah, Left Alive.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. I was really hoping that'd be cool.
The mech gameplay, and oh, dude, I was so hyped for Left Alive, and then it was a massive disappointment.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I really love the mecha design of that game, though. It's really good looking.
Yeah, its style is amazing. It looks great in a magazine, too bad it doesn't look so good on a console.
Yeah, sad that it was wasted on a subpar game, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, you do get occasional weird, interesting crossover projects. They're not super related to that, but there was this one ultra niche thing that someone just pointed out to me a while ago called I Am Not a Monster. It was like some random small Russian studio that decided to make basically like a 60s space sci-fi thing, and then combine it with like XCOM and kind of like a Shadowrun kind of deal. It's been surprisingly interesting. Kind of makes me wonder if maybe some of these concepts might be explored by some weird Eastern European dev no one's ever heard of. But who knows? So here we go. We got this random programmer out from the gulags. Let's go make this thing.
But yeah, it was good talk. Good tier list. I am satisfied with the tier list. I think this is a good rough idea of what to expect from each AC game in terms of quality.
Yeah, and thanks for all the feedback on your end there. There's a hell of a lot of there's always new things to figure out about this series, you know? It's almost like these developers are crazy.
A lot of things that people wouldn't know from just playing the game and stuff like that.
Holy crap, is it seriously
Which is one of the
3
reasons
hours?
I wanted someone to like bounce stuff off when talking about it, because it's a really good topic to explore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Guess we should probably call it there then, because yeah, hot dang, 3 freaking hours.
Yeah, it went off for like 3 hours, and
Yeah,
we talked about a lot of topics like unrelated to the tier list, but it's pretty cool.
Well, time to go figure out the rest of the schedule now. Got some catching up to do. It's like, I had an hour. All right, anyway. All right, anyway, good talk, man. Hopefully can do another one of these at some point. We'll see if people got subjects. Just go through each and every single part in the entire series. Make it a 28-hour-long thing. And that's just getting through the pistols. All right. You have a good one then. Take care.
All right, bye-bye, everyone. Good talk.
See ya. Take care.